The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. But what happens when something defies every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation? When the impossible doesn't just knock on your door but tears through the hull of your starship with claws made of a metal that shouldn't exist? Captain Jean-Luc Picard stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise-D, studying the anomaly on the view screen with the practiced calm of a man who had faced gods and monsters. The spatial rift shimmered like a wound in space itself, bleeding exotic particles that made the ship's sensors scream contradictions. It had appeared without warning in Sector 221G, a region of space so unremarkable that Starfleet typically assigned it to cadet training missions. "Report, Mr. Data," Picard said, his voice carrying the measured authority that had guided his crew through encounters with the Borg, Q, and temporal paradoxes. The android's fingers moved across his console with inhuman precision. "Captain, the anomaly is emitting subspace frequencies I have never encountered. It appears to be a dimensional rift, but the energy signature suggests it originates from a universe with fundamentally different physical laws. The rift is destabilizing and will collapse in approximately 4 minutes. Any ships or life forms? Sensors detect organic matter within the rift, but the readings are incongruous." Data's yellow eyes reflected genuine puzzlement, a rare expression for an android who had catalogued millions of life forms. "I am detecting a humanoid biosignature. But there is also a metallic skeleton that my scans identify as an unknown alloy with properties that violate our understanding of metallurgy." Picard leaned forward. "Number 1? Commander William Riker stepped closer to the view screen, his jaw set. "If there's someone in there, we have a duty to retrieve them. But that metal signature concerns me. Could be a weapon, could be a trap." "Mr. Worf?" The Klingon security chief's response was immediate and guttural. "I recommend yellow alert, Captain. Shields up, weapons ready. We do not know what we are bringing aboard." Picard considered for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to weigh the risks, short enough to act before the opportunity vanished. "Transporter Room 3, lock onto that biosignature and beam it directly to sickbay. Erect a Level 5 containment field. Mr. Worf, security team to sickbay immediately." "Aye, Captain," came Chief O'Brien's voice over the comm. "Initiating transport." "Captain, I'm getting massive interference. The transporter is trying to lock onto the organic matter, but that metal is scattering the beam. I'll need to widen the confinement beam and boost power too." The ship shuddered. Not the gentle vibration of impulse engines or the smooth transition to warp speed, but a violent jolt that threw crew members against their stations. Red alert klaxons screamed to life. "The rift is collapsing," Data reported. "The subspace instability is creating a gravitational shear. If we do not move to a safe distance, belay that," Picard commanded. "Mr. O'Brien, do you have him?" A pause. Then, "Aye, sir. Got him. But Captain, you need to see this." Picard was already moving toward the turbolift. Riker and Worf close behind. As the doors hissed shut and the lift began its descent, he tapped his comm badge. "Picard to Dr. Crusher." "Report." Beverly Crusher's voice carried an edge of controlled alarm that Picard had rarely heard from his chief medical officer. "Jean-Luc, you need to get down here. I've scanned a lot of species in my career. But this is impossible." The turbo lift deposited them into a corridor where the lighting had shifted to the amber hues of yellow alert. Crew members pressed themselves against the walls as Picard's command team strode past, their urgency palpable. When the doors to sickbay slid open, they revealed a scene that would have looked routine if not for the shimmering blue containment field surrounding the primary biobed and the man lying unconscious within it. He was shorter than Picard had expected, perhaps 5'3", with a muscular build that suggested someone who lived in constant physical readiness. His clothing was torn and scorched, revealing skin that was healing before their eyes. Small cuts and burns were closing, flesh knitting together with a speed that made the medical monitors flash warnings about impossible cellular regeneration. But it was his hands that drew every eye in the room. Between his knuckles, 3 claws extended from each hand, gleaming metal, blades roughly a foot long, stained with blood that appeared to be his own. "Dear God," Riker breathed. Dr. Crusher stood at her medical console, her face illuminated by displays showing biological readouts that seemed to be arguing with themselves. "His skeleton is laced with some kind of unknown metal alloy. Not just grafted onto the bones, molecularly bonded at a level our scanners can barely detect. Every bone in his body, reinforced with this adamantium, according to trace linguistic data in his cerebral cortex. And that's not the strangest part." She pulled up a holographic display of the man's cellular structure. "His cells are regenerating at an exponential rate. I've watched him heal from what should be fatal injuries in seconds. Tissue damage, cellular degradation, even toxin exposure, his body just fixes it. It's as if death is something his biology refuses to accept. Worf stepped closer to the containment field, his hand instinctively moving to his phaser. Is he a weapon? I believe, Data said, studying his tricorder with fascination, that the more pertinent question is, was he made into one? The metal in his skeleton shows signs of surgical implantation. The trauma to his body suggests extensive experimentation. And his neurological scans indicate memory engrams that have been suppressed, possibly through technological or chemical means. Picard moved to stand before the containment field, studying the unconscious man with the measured gaze of someone trying to read a book written in a language he didn't quite understand. The man's face was weathered, lined with the kind of age that spoke of hard years and harder choices. There was a roughness to him that felt alien on a ship where replicators provided everything and conflict was something to be resolved through words rather than violence. Life signs? Picard asked. Stable, though his heart rate and brain activity suggest he's beginning to wake, Crusher replied. Jean-Luc. Before he does, you need to understand something. I've detected over 200 years of cellular aging in his body. This man has lived through centuries. And the psychological profile Counselor Troy is running suggests most of those years were marked by violence and trauma. As if summoned by her words, Deanna Troy entered sickbay, her dark eyes troubled. Captain, I can sense him even through the containment field. There's so much pain. So much rage buried under layers of forced control. He's a man who's been hurt in ways I can barely comprehend, who's had everything taken from him repeatedly. And underneath it all. She paused, searching for the right words. Underneath it all. He's trying very hard to hold on to something human. The man on the biobed stirred. His breathing shifted from the deep rhythm of unconsciousness to the shorter, sharper pattern of someone surfacing from dark dreams. His fingers twitched, and the claws extending from his knuckles gleamed under sickbay's sterile lighting. Picard straightened, his hand raised slightly to keep Worf from drawing his phaser. Stand ready, but do not fire unless I give the order. We are Starfleet officers. We respond to the unknown with curiosity and compassion. Not fear. Not fear. The man's eyes snapped open. They were dark, hard, and utterly feral, the eyes of something that had survived by being more dangerous than everything trying to kill it. He took in his surroundings in a single sweeping glance. The medical equipment, the containment field, the uniforms, the faces staring at him with a mixture of fascination and wariness. When he spoke, his voice was a low growl that seemed to resonate from somewhere deep in his chest. Where the hell am I? Picard stepped forward, his posture open but commanding. I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation's starship Enterprise. You were retrieved from a dimensional rift. You are safe here, and we mean you no harm. Can you tell us your name? The man sat up slowly, the claws retracting into his hands with a wet, organic sound that made several of the medical staff wince. He studied his hands as if checking that they still worked, then looked directly at Picard with an intensity that felt almost physical. Name's Logan, he said. But most people call me Wolverine. And if you think I'm safe, Captain, then your sensors don't work as good as you think they do. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The containment field hummed between them, a barrier of blue light that represented the Federation's preferred method of dealing with the unknown. Contain, study, understand. Logan stared at it with the expression of a man who'd seen too many cages in his lifetime. Lower the field, Picard said quietly. Every head in sickbay turned toward him. Worf's objection was immediate and predictable. Captain, that would be unwise. We do not know. I know that if this man wished to harm us, a containment field would merely delay the inevitable, not prevent it. Picard kept his eyes on Logan. Am I correct, Mr. Logan? Logan's lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. Those claws you saw? They can cut through damn near anything. Your fancy force field might slow me down for 30 seconds. Maybe a minute if I'm being polite. He rolled his shoulders, and Picard heard the subtle click of metal on metal beneath flesh. But here's the thing, Captain, I don't know where I am, don't know how I got here, and I got no reason to tear apart your ship. Yet. A conditional peace, Picard observed. I'll accept that. Dr. Crusher. Lower the field. Beverly hesitated for only a moment before nodding to the medical technician at the control panel. The blue shimmer dissolved, and suddenly there was nothing between the crew of the Enterprise and a man who could kill them faster than they could draw their phasers. Logan swung his legs off the biobed, moving with a fluid grace that suggested coiled violence held in check. He was barefoot. Picard noticed. And his torn clothing revealed more of the accelerated healing Crusher had described. A phaser burn across his ribs was fading even as Picard watched. New skin growing over charred tissue like time-lapse footage of a plant reaching toward sunlight. "You said dimensional rift," Logan said. His voice rough as gravel. "What's that mean?" Data stepped forward with his characteristic lack of concern for personal safety. "You have crossed from one universe into another, Mr. Logan. The rift we detected originated from a reality with different fundamental physical laws. Your biology suggests adaptations that would be impossible in our universe under normal circumstances, which supports the hypothesis that you are not native to this dimension." Logan processed this with the stoic acceptance of someone who'd seen too much weird shit to be surprised anymore. "Figures. I was in the Weapon X facility, they were running another round of tests, and then," he closed his eyes, concentrating. "Pain. A lot of pain. Something felt wrong with the machine they were using. Then white light, felt like my bones were being pulled apart, and I woke up here." "Weapon X?" Troy repeated softly. "That's what they called the program that did this to you?" Logan's eyes snapped open, fixing on her with sudden intensity. "You stay out of my head, lady. I don't care what kind of empath or telepath you are, my mind's been messed with enough." Troy didn't flinch, but Picard sensed her withdrawal, a subtle shift in her posture. "I'm not reading your thoughts, Mr. Logan. I'm an empath, not a telepath. I sense emotions, not memories. And what I sense from you is complicated. Join the club." Logan looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers. The knuckles bore faint scars where the claws emerged. "So what now? You gonna dissect me? Study me? Try to figure out how to replicate what they did to me?" The bitterness in his voice was a physical thing, sharp enough to cut. Picard recognized it, the tone of someone who'd been treated as an object rather than a person, whose value was measured in utility rather than dignity. "No, Mr. Logan. We are not." Picard's voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "The United Federation of Planets was founded on principles of respect for all sentient life. You are not a specimen to be studied. You are a person who deserves our assistance in returning to your home universe." Logan barked a laugh that held no humor. "Home? That's a good one. You got any idea how many times I've tried to find a place that felt like home? Captain, how many times I thought I'd found it, only to watch it burn. Then perhaps," Picard said carefully, "while we work on finding a way to return you to your universe, you might find some measure of peace aboard the Enterprise." "Peace?" Logan rolled the word around like a foreign concept. "You really believe in that, don't you? All of you. I can see it in your eyes. In the way you carry yourselves. You think the universe can be reasoned with. That problems can be solved with the right words and enough good intentions." Riker stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts engaging. "The Federation has survived for over 200 years on those principles. Mr. Logan, we've made first contact with dozens of species, negotiated peace treaties, prevented wars, and how many times have you had to fight anyway?" Logan interrupted. "Because I'm betting that when push comes to shove, when someone decides they don't want to be reasoned with, you got weapons on this ship. You got soldiers. You got people willing to do violence to protect what they believe in." Worf's posture straightened almost imperceptibly. "We are Starfleet officers, we are prepared to defend the Federation and its ideals. But we do not seek combat. We seek understanding." Logan studied the Klingon with interest, his enhanced senses clearly picking up details the others missed. "You're different. Not human. And you're a warrior, I can smell it on you. The way you stand. The way your hand keeps drifting toward that weapon on your hip. You understand what I'm talking about." "I am Klingon," Worf said, his voice a low rumble. "My people have a warrior tradition spanning millennia, but I serve in Starfleet because I believe in something greater than the glory of battle. I believe in honor, in duty, in protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "Noble," Logan said, but there was something in his tone that suggested respect rather than mockery. "But when the shooting starts, you're still the one who pulls the trigger. You can dress it up in honor and duty all you want, but at the end of the day, you're a weapon, just like me." Picard felt the conversation sliding toward dangerous territory. "Mr. Logan, you are not a weapon. You are a man who has been subjected to horrific experimentation, who has survived through extraordinary circumstances. Those who created you this Weapon X program, they attempted to reduce you to an object. But you are here, thinking, feeling, choosing your actions. That makes you a person, not a weapon." Logan was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching Picard's face for deception or hidden agenda. Whatever he found there seemed to satisfy some inner test, because his shoulders relaxed fractionally. "Pretty speech, Captain. Let's see if you still believe it when things get complicated." He looked down at himself. taking in his torn and bloodied clothing. You got somewhere I can clean up? And maybe some clothes that don't look like I went 10 rounds with a cheese grater? Crusher moved to a supply cabinet, pulling out a standard-issue Starfleet medical uniform. These should fit. There are sonic showers in the adjacent facilities. I'd like to run more scans once you're settled, if you're willing. I promise strictly non-invasive, and only with your consent. Logan took the clothing, weighing it in his hands as if testing for hidden threats. You're asking? That's a first. He paused at the doorway to the shower facilities. Doc, that healing thing you mentioned, it's permanent. Been this way for over 200 years. You're not gonna find a way to shut it off or replicate it. Plenty of people smarter than you have tried. I'm not trying to shut it off or replicate it, Crusher said firmly. I'm trying to understand you as a patient. To make sure that your biology is compatible with our environment. The last thing I want is for you to suffer because we didn't properly account for differences between your universe and ours. Logan studied her for another moment, then nodded once before disappearing into the shower room. As soon as the door closed, Riker turned to Picard. Sir, we need to contact Starfleet Command. A man with metal claws and a healing factor who's survived 2 centuries that's going to raise questions. Security questions. Agreed, Picard said. But we will frame those questions carefully. Number 1, Mr. Logan is not a threat to be neutralized. He is a person in need of assistance. Data tilted his head. Captain, I have been analyzing the linguistic and cultural references in Mr. Logan's speech patterns. He makes references to facilities, programs, and organizations that do not exist in Federation records. His universe appears to be one where genetic manipulation and human experimentation occur with disturbing frequency. The Weapon X program he mentions suggests a military-industrial complex that views enhanced humans as assets rather than citizens. Troy wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of self-comfort Picard rarely saw from his counselor. He's been hurt so many times that he expects betrayal as a default. Every kind gesture, every offer of help, he's waiting for the other shoe to drop. The pain I sensed from him isn't just physical. It's existential. He doesn't trust the universe to let him be happy. Then we will prove him wrong, Picard said quietly. We will show him that the Federation is not his Weapon X program. That there are places in the universe where beings are valued for who they are, not what they can do. Worf's growl was thoughtful. He is a warrior, Captain. I recognized it immediately. Not a soldier, a warrior. There is a difference. Soldiers follow orders, warriors choose their battles. He has chosen his battles for centuries. And they have left scars that no healing factor can erase. The door to the shower facilities opened, and Logan emerged wearing the gray medical uniform that looked strangely out of place on his compact, muscular frame. His hair was still wet, slicked back from his face, revealing the hard angles of a face that had forgotten how to be young. So what happens now, Captain? Logan asked. You gonna assign me quarters? Give me the grand tour? Pretend like everything's normal while you figure out what to do with me? Picard met his gaze steadily. What happens now, Mr. Logan, is that we begin working on a way to return you to your universe. In the meantime, you are a guest aboard this vessel. You will be treated with the same respect and courtesy as any member of this crew. And if I don't want to go back? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Then we will discuss your options, Picard said. But that is a conversation for another time. First, let us ensure you are medically stable. Then we will address the larger questions. Logan grunted a sound that could have meant anything and returned to the biobed. As Dr. Crusher began her scans, as Data cataloged impossible cellular structures, as Troy sensed centuries of buried pain, Picard found himself wondering what kind of universe could create a man like Logan, and whether the Federation was prepared for what that man might become in a universe that promised him peace. The observation lounge felt too clean, too ordered for a man like Logan. He sat at the far end of the conference table, shoulders hunched slightly forward, hands resting flat on the polished surface. His fingers drummed in a regular rhythm, not nervous energy, Picard observed, but the constant vigilance of someone whose survival had always depended on reading the room, identifying exits, calculating threats. Picard sat at the head of the table, with Riker, Data, Worf, Troy, and Dr. Crusher arranged along the sides. Through the viewport behind them, stars stretched into elongated lines as the Enterprise maintained warp 6 toward the nearest starbase. The meeting had been called to discuss Logan's situation, but Picard suspected the real purpose was to give his senior staff time to process what they'd brought aboard. Doctor, Picard began. Your full medical assessment? Crusher pulled up a holographic display from the table's interface. Logan's skeletal system rotated in the air between them, every bone outlined in shimmering metal. What we're seeing is theoretically impossible. The metal adamantium, as Logan calls it, isn't just coating his bones. It's been bonded at the molecular level through a process I can't even begin to understand. The atomic structure shows properties that violate everything we know about metallurgy. It's virtually indestructible. Virtually? Riker asked. In my universe, Logan said quietly. There's maybe 3 or 4 things that can cut through it. And trust me, you don't want to meet any of them. Data leaned forward, his yellow eyes reflecting the hologram's light. Mr. Logan, I have been studying the physiological readings Dr. Crusher compiled. Your cellular regeneration operates at a rate that should generate catastrophic levels of heat. The thermodynamic laws governing cellular mitosis in our universe suggest you should be experiencing constant fever, possibly fatal hyperthermia, yet your body temperature remains stable at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. How is this possible? Logan shrugged. You're asking the wrong guy. Data. I'm not a scientist. All I know is I heal fast. I don't age. And I'm pretty damn hard to kill. The eggheads who made me this way never bothered explaining the details. Made you, Troy said softly. You keep using that word. This wasn't something you were born with? Logan's jaw tightened. I was born a mutant. The healing factor, the enhanced senses that was natural, happened when I was a kid. But the adamantium, the claws being coated in metal instead of bone. He extended one set of claws with a liquid snick that made Worf's hand move toward his phaser. That was Weapon X. They wanted to create the perfect weapon. Took a guy who couldn't die and made him into something that could kill anything. And you escaped. Picard said. It wasn't a question. Eventually, after they'd screwed with my head enough times that I'm not even sure what memories are real anymore. Logan retracted the claws, and Picard saw the brief wince of pain that accompanied it. The healing factor might repair the damage. But it didn't prevent the hurt. Spent most of my life running from one thing or another. Government programs. Criminal organizations. People who wanted to study me. People who wanted to use me. People who wanted to kill me. You are not running here, Picard said firmly. I want to make that clear. You are not a prisoner, nor are you an experiment. You are under the protection of the United Federation of Planets. Logan's laugh was bitter. For how long, Captain? Until Starfleet Command decides I'm too dangerous? Until someone realizes they could use my healing factor to create super soldiers? I've heard these promises before. Then allow me to educate you about the Federation, Picard said, his voice taking on the lecturing tone that had earned him both respect and occasional eye rolls from his crew. 300 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself in a series of conflicts driven by the exact philosophy you described, the belief that might makes right, that genetic superiority justifies exploitation. The eugenics wars killed millions. The augments nearly enslaved Earth. He stood, moving to the viewport where the stars streamed past. We learned from that nightmare, Mr. Logan. We learned that true strength comes not from enhancement or weapons, but from our principles. The Federation was founded on the belief that all sentient beings have inherent worth. That diversity is not a threat, but our greatest asset. We have a saying, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Pretty words, Logan said. But I've lived long enough to know that principles get flexible when survival's on the line. You are correct that principles can be tested, Picard acknowledged. But that is precisely when they matter most. When facing the Borg, we could have used weapons that would have destroyed them utterly, but at the cost of committing genocide. We chose another path. When confronting species that challenged our understanding of life itself, we chose dialogue over destruction. Worf cleared his throat. Captain, if I may, Mr. Logan raises a valid concern. Starfleet Command will want a full report on his capabilities. Security protocols will need to be established. There will be questions about whether he poses a threat to the Federation. Then we will answer those questions honestly, Picard said. Mr. Logan, I will not lie to you. Starfleet will be concerned. You represent an unknown variable with considerable combat capabilities. But I will advocate for you, and I will ensure that you are treated as a person, not a threat assessment. Logan studied Picard with those hard, ancient eyes. Why? You don't know me. For all you know, I'm everything they should be worried about. Because everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, Troy interjected. And because I can sense that beneath all that anger and pain, you're trying very hard to be better than what they made you. Logan's expression flickered, something raw and vulnerable breaking through the hardened exterior for just a moment before being locked away again. Don't go thinking I'm some kind of hero. Counselor, I've done things that would make you sick. Killed people. Hurt people. Sometimes because I had to. Sometimes because I wanted to. And yet, Data observed, when you awoke in sickbay surrounded by potential threats, you chose not to attack. When given the opportunity to escape, you chose to remain and engage in dialogue. Your actions suggest a moral code that governs your behavior despite your claimed capacity for violence. Or maybe I'm just waiting to see how this plays out. Logan countered. Crusher pulled up another display, this one showing Logan's neurological scans. There's something else you should know, Captain. The memory suppression Logan mentioned, I can see evidence of it in his brain chemistry. Artificial neural inhibitors, probably administered repeatedly over years. Someone wanted to control not just his body, but his mind. Logan's hands clenched into fists on the table. Yeah. They'd make me forget who I was, what I'd done. Turn me into a weapon they could point at whoever they wanted dead. Then afterwards, they'd wipe me again. Rinse and repeat. The silence in the observation lounge was heavy with the weight of that revelation. Picard felt a surge of anger not at Logan, but at the universe that had created him. What kind of civilization would do this to a sentient being? Could we remove the inhibitors? Picard asked. Restore his memories? Not safely, Crusher admitted. The neural pathways have adapted around the damage. Attempting to remove or reverse the suppression could cause catastrophic psychological trauma. The memories are there, but they're buried under layers of artificial barriers. It would take specialized psychiatric treatment over months, possibly years. Even then, Troy added gently, Mr. Logan would need to want those memories back. Sometimes, forgetting is the only way the mind can cope with trauma. Logan stood abruptly, chairs scraping against the deck. He moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars with his back to the room. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You know what the worst part is? I don't even know if I had a family. Kids, maybe. People who loved me before I became this. Every time I try to remember, I hit a wall. Just fragments, a woman's face, snow falling, the sound of someone laughing, but I can't put it together. Can't make it real. Picard moved to stand beside him, close enough to offer presence without crowding. Then perhaps we can help you find those answers. The Federation has resources. Historians. Xenopsychologists. Specialists in recovered memory. Captain, Riker interrupted. His tone urgent. Incoming transmission from Starfleet Command. Admiral Nechayev wants to speak with you immediately. It's marked Priority 1. Picard exchanged a glance with Riker. Admiral Elena Nechayev was not known for patience or sentiment. If she was calling this quickly, it meant someone at Starfleet Command had already decided Logan was a problem that needed immediate attention. Pipe it through to my ready room, Picard said. He turned to Logan. Wait here. I will handle this. Off. Let me guess, Logan said, still staring at the stars. They want to lock me up. Study me. Maybe figure out how to make more of me. I will not allow that to happen. Logan finally turned to look at him, and there was something like weary gratitude in his expression. You might not have a choice, Captain. People in power, they always find a way to get what they want. Then they have clearly never dealt with Jean-Luc Picard. Riker said with a slight smile. Picard left the observation lounge and entered his ready room. Settling into the chair behind his desk as the Federation seal on the view screen dissolved into Admiral Nechayev's stern features. She was a woman who looked like she'd been carved from granite, all sharp angles and harder edges. Captain Picard, she said without preamble. I've read your preliminary report on the humanoid you retrieved from the spatial anomaly. A man with an indestructible metal skeleton and accelerated healing who claims to be from another universe. Do you understand the security implications? I understand that we have rescued a person in distress, Admiral. A person who has been subjected to horrific experimentation and who deserves our protection. Not our suspicion. Nechayev's expression didn't change. Your compassion is noted, Captain, but Starfleet Command has to consider worst-case scenarios. What if this Logan is a weapon sent by a hostile power? What if his presence here is the first stage of an invasion from his universe? Then that hostile power made a crucial error in judgment, Picard said calmly, because Mr. Logan has no love for the people who created him. If anything, he is more likely to oppose such an invasion than facilitate it. Perhaps. Or perhaps he's been programmed to believe exactly that. Nechayev leaned forward. Captain, I'm ordering you to proceed to Starbase 234. We're sending a team of specialist xenobiologists, security analysts, and intelligence officers. They will conduct a full evaluation of this individual. With respect, Admiral, Mr. Logan is not a threat assessment. He is a guest aboard my ship. He is an unknown variable with the capability to kill everyone aboard the Enterprise before they could draw their weapons, Nechayev countered. Your report indicates his claws can cut through virtually any material. That his healing factor makes him nearly immortal. Do you seriously expect me to ignore those facts? Picard chose his words carefully. I expect you to remember that the Federation was founded on principles of dignity and respect for all sentient life. Mr. Logan has committed no crime. He has cooperated fully with our medical examinations. He has shown restraint and reason. To treat him as a prisoner or an experiment would be a betrayal of everything we claim to stand for." Nechayev was silent for a long moment. Her expression unreadable. "You're putting your career on the line for someone you just met, Jean-Luc." "I am upholding the oath I swore when I became a Starfleet officer," Picard said quietly. "To seek out new life. To respect the dignity of all beings we encounter. If that puts my career at risk, then so be it." Another pause. Then, Starbase 234. 3 days. "The specialists will meet you there. And Captain, keep that man under constant surveillance. If he so much as sneezes wrong, I want to know about it." The transmission ended. Picard sat back in his chair, feeling the weight of the decision he just made. He had bought Logan time, but he knew Nechayev wouldn't back down. In 3 days, the Federation's bureaucracy would descend on the Enterprise, and Logan's fate would be decided by people who saw him as a security risk rather than a person. Unless Picard could prove them wrong. Logan sat in the quarters they'd assigned him, Deck 8. Section 4. A standard guest room that felt like a luxury hotel compared to the cells and barracks he'd known. The bed was too soft. The lighting was too even. Lacking the harsh fluorescence or dim emergency lights he was accustomed to. Everything was clean, ordered, peaceful. It made his skin crawl. He'd been aboard the Enterprise for 18 hours now. And the wrongness of it all hadn't faded. People smiled at him in the corridors. Nobody flinched when he walked past. The security officers' Worf's people watched him, sure, but they didn't have their hands on their weapons. They nodded respectfully, like he was just another passenger instead of a walking arsenal. It was the kind of place that made him want to run. Because places like this didn't exist for people like him. And when they did, they never lasted. The door chime sounded a polite electronic tone that asked permission instead of demanding entry. Logan grunted, which the ship's computer apparently interpreted as consent, because the door slid open to reveal Data standing in the corridor. "Mr. Logan," the android said with his characteristic head tilt. "I apologize for the intrusion. Captain Picard requested that I check on your acclimation to the ship's environment. Are you experiencing any difficulties? Besides being in a universe where I don't belong?" Logan gestured to the interior of his quarters. "Come in. I guess. Not like I'm doing anything." Data entered with precise, economical movements. He glanced around the room, noting that Logan hadn't touched any of the personal amenities, the replicator, the entertainment console, the artwork on the walls. The bed was still made, unused. Logan had apparently spent the night sitting in the chair by the window, watching the stars. "You did not sleep," Data observed. "Don't need much." Logan lied. The truth was he'd tried, but every time he closed his eyes, he was back in the Weapon X lab, strapped to a table while they pumped molten metal into his bones. Or he was in some other nightmare. There were so many to choose from across 2 centuries of violence. Data sat uninvited in the chair opposite Logan, his yellow eyes studying him with an intensity that would have been unnerving if it came from a human. From an android, it just felt like curiosity without judgment. "I have been researching the concept of enhanced humans in Federation history," Data said. "During Earth's eugenics wars of the 1990 seconds, genetically modified individuals known as augments attempted to seize control of the planet. They possessed superior strength, intelligence, and aggression. The conflict resulted in millions of deaths and led to strict Federation laws prohibiting genetic enhancement." Logan snorted. "Let me guess, everyone's gonna assume I'm like those augments. Another Superman who thinks he's better than everyone else." "That would be a logical assumption," Data agreed. "However, I do not believe it is an accurate one. The augments were engineered from birth to be superior. You were transformed against your will into something designed for combat. The distinction is significant. You think Starfleet's gonna care about that distinction? I believe Captain Picard will ensure they do." Data paused, and something in his expression shifted, became almost melancholy. "I am familiar with the experience of being viewed as an object rather than a person. Mr. Logan, as an android, I have faced numerous legal challenges to my personhood. I have been disassembled, studied, and nearly destroyed because others saw me as a machine rather than a sentient being." Logan looked at Data with new interest. "How'd you handle it?" "I proved my sentience through my actions," Data said simply. "I demonstrated free will, creativity, emotional understanding, all the qualities that define a person. It was Captain Picard who defended my right to choose my own fate. He argued that I was not the property of Starfleet, but an individual deserving of autonomy and respect. And it worked? It established precedent. Though I suspect I will continue to face such challenges throughout my existence." Data tilted his head again. "I find it interesting that you and I share certain similarities. We were both created for specific purposes. We both struggle with questions of identity and belonging. The difference is that I aspire to be more human, while you seem to wish you were less so. Logan was quiet for a long moment. You know what the worst part of the healing factor is, Data? It's not the pain I got used to that a long time ago. It's that I can't die. Everyone I've ever cared about dead. Every place I've tried to call home gone. But me? I just keep going. Keep healing. Keep surviving. Sometimes I wonder if I'm even alive anymore. Or if I'm just stuck. An existential question I am intimately familiar with. Data said. As an android, I do not age. Barring catastrophic damage, I could theoretically exist indefinitely. I often wonder if I am truly alive or merely an elaborate simulation of life. What'd you decide? I decided that the question matters less than what I choose to do with my existence. Whether I am truly alive or not, I can still learn, grow, and contribute to the lives of those around me. Perhaps that is enough. The door chime sounded again. This time it was Troy, carrying what looked like a tray of food. Logan's enhanced senses picked up the scent before she entered something with meat, potatoes, and gravy. His stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten since arriving. I thought you might be hungry, Troy said with a gentle smile. The replicator in your quarters can produce any meal you'd like, but I thought you might appreciate something traditional. Comfort food, as humans call it. Logan eyed the tray suspiciously. You didn't have to do that. I know. I wanted to. She set the tray on the small table near the window. It's pot roast. My mother used to make it when I was feeling overwhelmed. There's something about familiar food that helps ground us when everything else feels uncertain. Logan moved to the table, his body responding to the smell despite his wariness. He picked up the fork, real metal, he noted, not the plastic utensils they'd give to someone they considered dangerous, and took a bite. The taste exploded across his tongue. Rich and savory and nothing like the ration bars and field meals he was used to. It's good, he admitted grudgingly. Troy sat down, her dark eyes watching him with that empathic intensity that made Logan uncomfortable. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. For us to reveal our real intentions. People don't do nice things without a reason. Sometimes the reason is simply that it's the right thing to do. She folded her hands in her lap. Logan, I want you to understand something. I can sense your emotions, not your thoughts. But the feelings beneath them. And what I sense from you is exhaustion. You've been fighting for so long that you've forgotten how to do anything else. Logan set down the fork, his appetite suddenly gone despite the gnawing hunger. You got a point, counselor? My point is that you don't have to fight here. Not unless you choose to. The Enterprise isn't a battlefield. The Federation isn't at war with you. We're offering you something you haven't had in a very long time, a chance to rest. Rest, Logan repeated, tasting the word like it was foreign. Lady, I don't know how to rest. Every time I let my guard down, someone comes along and reminds me why that's a bad idea. Data spoke up from his chair. Perhaps that is precisely why you should attempt it here. The statistical probability of hostile action against you aboard the Enterprise is extremely low. Captain Picard has made your protection a priority. Worf has assigned security protocols. Dr. Crusher is monitoring your health. You are, by all measurable standards, as safe as it is possible to be. Safe. Logan muttered. Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Mr. Logan, please report to the observation lounge. Captain Picard requests your presence. Logan stood, his muscles tensing automatically. That the other shoe? Or perhaps, Troy said softly, it's simply a conversation. The three of them made their way through the Enterprise's corridors. Logan noted the layout, automatically habit born from decades of needing to know every exit, every potential weapon, every tactical advantage. The ship was massive, clean, and full of people who looked like they'd never seen real combat. Scientists, engineers, families with children. It was surreal. When they entered the observation lounge, Logan found Picard standing by the viewport with Riker, Crusher, and Worf. The captain turned as they entered, his expression serious but not hostile. Mr. Logan, thank you for coming. Please, sit. Picard gestured to the conference table. I wanted to discuss your situation candidly, without the filters of official reports or Starfleet protocols. Logan remained standing. Let me guess, Starfleet wants me locked up in some lab. Starfleet wants to ensure you're not a threat, Picard corrected. There is a difference. Admiral Nechayev has ordered the Enterprise to Starbase 234, where a team of specialists will conduct an evaluation. I cannot countermand those orders. So I'm a prisoner. No, Picard said firmly. You are a guest who happens to be under observation. The distinction is important. You will not be confined. You will not be subjected to invasive procedures without your consent. You will be treated with dignity and respect. But they're still gonna decide whether I'm too dangerous to let walk around free. Riker stepped forward. Logan, I won't lie to you, some people at Starfleet Command are scared. You represent something they don't understand. Power without their control. The Federation spent centuries learning to be wary of enhanced individuals after the eugenics wars nearly destroyed Earth. So I'm guilty until proven innocent. So you're unknown until proven otherwise, Picard corrected. There is a path forward, Mr. Logan, but it requires your cooperation. If you demonstrate that you can coexist peacefully within Federation society, that you understand and respect our laws and values, then Starfleet will have no grounds to restrict your freedom. Logan barked that humorless laugh again. And if I don't want to play by their rules? What if I decide your Federation and its laws don't apply to me? Worf's response was immediate. Then you would be treated as any other individual who rejects the rule of law. There would be consequences. At least you're honest about it, Logan said, meeting the Klingon's gaze. There was respect there, warrior recognizing warrior. I appreciate that more than all the pretty speeches about dignity and respect. Picard moved to stand directly in front of Logan. They were roughly the same height. But their bearing couldn't have been more different. Picard's cultivated calm versus Logan's coiled tension. Mr. Logan, I understand your cynicism. You have been betrayed repeatedly by those in authority. But I am asking you to give us a chance to prove that we are different. 3 days. That is how long until we reach Starbase 234. In those 3 days, allow me to show you what the Federation truly represents. And if I'm not impressed, then you will still be free to make your own choices. But you will make them from an informed position rather than from assumption and prejudice. Logan studied Picard's face, searching for the lie, the hidden agenda, the trap. But all he saw was earnest conviction, a man who genuinely believed in what he was saying. It was either the most elaborate con Logan had ever encountered, or it was real. 3 days, Logan said finally. But I'm not making any promises, Captain. And if your people try anything, they won't, Picard said with absolute certainty. You have my word. Your word, Logan repeated. In my experience, that doesn't count for much. Then let me change your experience, Picard said simply. Crusher stepped forward, tablet in hand. Logan, while you're here, I'd like to continue monitoring your physiology. Not as an experiment, but to ensure your health. Your healing factor operates differently in this universe. The energy signatures are slightly off. I want to make sure there are no long-term complications from the dimensional transition. Long-term, Logan said with bitter amusement. Doc, I've survived gunshots, explosions, drowning, electrocution, and being ripped apart at the cellular level. I think I can handle a little dimensional instability. Nevertheless, Crusher said with the firm tone of a doctor who wouldn't be argued with, I would appreciate your cooperation. Consider it a trade. I monitor your health. You get access to medical technology that might actually surprise you. Logan was about to respond when the ship suddenly lurched. Red alert klaxons screamed to life. And Picard's comm badge chirped urgently. Bridge to Captain Picard. Came the voice of the officer on duty. We're detecting multiple Romulan vessels decloaking off the port bow. They're hailing us, sir. And they're asking specifically about our unusual passenger. Logan's claws extended with that characteristic snick, his body dropping into combat stance on pure instinct. That didn't take long. Picard's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Mr. Logan, I need you to stay here with Counselor Troy and Data. Like hell. Logan growled. If they're here for me, I'm not hiding. You're not hiding, Picard said as he headed for the door. Riker and Worf close behind. You're staying out of the line of fire until we understand the situation. That is not a request. Mr. Logan. The door slid shut behind them, leaving Logan alone with Data and Troy in the observation lounge. Through the viewport, he could see the sleek, predatory shapes of Romulan warbirds materializing from cloak, their weapons already powered and tracking the Enterprise. Well, Logan said, his claws gleaming in the starlight. Guess we're about to find out how peaceful this Federation of yours really is. The bridge of the Enterprise was controlled chaos, crew members moving with practiced efficiency, voices crisp and professional, despite the threat hanging in the void outside. Picard settled into his command chair, his posture conveying calm authority even as tactical displays showed 3 Romulan Dideridex-class warbirds holding position at the edge of weapons range. Shields up, yellow alert, Picard ordered. Maintain current course and speed, open a channel. The view screen flickered, replacing the image of the warbirds with the face of a Romulan commander. She was middle-aged by Romulan standards, with the characteristic severe features and calculating eyes of someone who'd clawed her way to power through the treacherous hierarchy of the Tal Shiar. Her uniform bore the insignia of a sub-commander, but the way she carried herself suggested she answered to higher authorities. "I am Sub-Commander Solara of the Romulan warbird Valdor," she said, her voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "Captain Picard. How predictable to find you involved in something that threatens the security of the Alpha Quadrant." "Sub-Commander," Picard replied with icy politeness. "You are operating dangerously close to Federation space. State your business." "Our business is with the individual you retrieved from the spatial anomaly 2 days ago. Our long-range sensors detected his unique energy signature when your transporter brought him aboard. We have been tracking you ever since." Solara's smile was predatory. "The Tal Shiar has a vested interest in beings with unusual capabilities." Riker leaned forward. "How did you know about him?" "Our report to Starfleet was transmitted on encrypted channels." "Please, Commander Riker. The Tal Shiar has sources throughout the Federation. Did you truly believe you could pull something this significant from subspace without us noticing?" Solara's expression hardened. "We detected the dimensional rift before you did. We chose to observe rather than intervene. A decision I am now prepared to rectify. The individual in question is under Federation protection," Picard said firmly. "He has committed no crime and poses no threat to Romulan interests. On the contrary, Captain. A being with an indestructible skeleton and regenerative abilities that defy biological law represents either an immense opportunity or an existential threat. The Romulan Star Empire will not permit such an unknown variable to remain in Federation hands without assurances." Worf's growl was barely audible. "Captain, they are powering weapons. All 3 ships." Picard kept his eyes locked on Solara's. "Sub-Commander, I strongly advise against hostile action. The Enterprise is more than capable of defending itself." "Against 3 warbirds?" Solara's laugh was cold. "I think not, Captain. However, I am not here to destroy you. I am here to negotiate. Transfer the individual to Romulan custody for study and evaluation, and we will allow you to proceed unmolested. Refuse, and we will be forced to take him by force. You would risk war between the Federation and the Romulan Empire over one individual? We would prevent the Federation from monopolizing a tactical advantage that could shift the balance of power in the Alpha Quadrant." Solara leaned forward. "Do not mistake this for a bluff, Picard. The Praetor himself has authorized this operation. Your passenger is too valuable to leave in your hands." Before Picard could respond, the turbolift doors hissed open. Logan strode onto the bridge, claws extended, with Data and Troy trailing behind him looking apologetic. "He insisted," Troy said simply. Logan moved to stand beside Picard's chair, his eyes fixed on the Romulan commander on the screen. "So these are the vultures you were worried about, Captain? They look like the type who'd cut open a guy just to see what makes him tick." Solara's expression shifted to one of fascinated interest. "Fascinating. The subject is even more primitive than our intelligence suggested. Tell me, creature, do you understand what you are? What you represent?" "I represent a guy with a real short temper and sharp objects where his fists used to be," Logan said, his voice a low growl. "And I got a policy about people who want to study me. It usually ends with them bleeding." "Empty threats from a trapped animal," Solara said dismissively. "Captain Picard, I am extending one final courtesy. Transfer custody, or we will disable your vessel and take what we want. You have 60 seconds to comply." The channel closed. The view screen returned to the image of 3 warbirds, their disruptor arrays glowing with gathering power. "Captain," Worf said urgently, "we cannot win this engagement. Even if we disable one vessel, the other 2 will overwhelm our shields." "Recommendations?" Picard asked, his mind already running through tactical scenarios and finding them all insufficient. Riker stood, moving to the tactical station. "We could make a run for the neutral zone boundary. Force them to either break off or commit to an act of war on record. They are already committed," Data observed from Ops. Sub-Commander Solara's transmission was not sent on standard diplomatic channels. "This is a black operation, likely authorized by the Tal Shiar rather than official Romulan military command. They intend to either succeed or ensure no evidence remains." Logan's claws retracted with a wet sound. "So basically, they're gonna blow up your ship to get to me. Or they're gonna board you and kill anyone who gets in the way." He looked at Picard. "Either way, people die because I'm here. That is not an acceptable outcome," Picard said firmly. "Then let me give myself up," Logan said. "It wasn't a suggestion, it was a statement of intent. I've been tortured by experts, Captain. Whatever they do to me, I'll survive." "Can't say the same for your crew." "Absolutely not." Picard snapped. I will not trade one life for the safety of this ship. We find another way. Captain, the officer at Ops called out. The Romulans are charging weapons. 30 seconds. Logan moved closer to Picard. His voice dropping to something almost gentle. Look. I appreciate what you're trying to do. Really, but I've been around long enough to know when a situation's gone sideways. You can't protect me and your ship. So let me make this easy for everyone. Mr. Logan. I've survived worse than the Tal Shiar, Captain. Hell, Weapon X makes their torture chambers look like a spa. I'll let them think they've won, then I'll escape. Done it 100 times before. Troy moved forward, her empathic senses screaming alarm. Logan, you can't. I can sense Solara's intentions. She's not interested in studying you. She wants to weaponize you, turn you into the first of a new breed of Romulan super soldiers. 15 seconds. Worf announced. Logan looked around the bridge at the crew members manning their stations. At the red alert lights painting everything in crimson urgency. At the faces of people who were about to die because he existed. He'd seen this before, in 100 different variations. Good people paying the price for his presence. I'm sorry, Captain, Logan said. Then he tapped his comm badge, something Data had shown him how to use hours earlier. Computer. Transport me to the coordinates of the lead Romulan ship. Now. Belay that order. Picard shouted, lunging from his chair, but the Enterprise's computer had already responded to what it registered as a valid transport request. Logan's form dissolved in a shimmer of blue light. His last expression a mixture of resignation and grim determination. No. Picard's fist slammed into his armrest. Transporter room 3, retrieve that signal immediately. O'Brien's voice came back strained. Captain. I can't get a lock. The Romulans activated a transport scrambler the second they detected our beam. He's on their ship, sir, and I can't pull him back. On the view screen, the Romulan warbirds powered down their weapons. A moment later, Solara's face reappeared, now showing satisfaction instead of threat. A wise choice, Captain Picard. The subject demonstrated more intelligence than we credited him with. Rest assured. He will be well cared for in Romulan custody. We will study him, learn from him, and perhaps if he cooperates even improve him. Sub-Commander. Picard said, his voice vibrating with barely controlled fury, if you harm that man, the Federation will consider it an act of war. I will personally ensure that every resource at Starfleet's disposal is directed toward his recovery. Bold words from a captain whose passenger just surrendered voluntarily. By Romulan law. He is now our property. The Federation has no legal standing to contest his custody. Solara's smile widened. However, should you wish to negotiate for his return, I'm certain the Praetor would be willing to discuss terms. Perhaps a prisoner exchange? Technology transfers? The possibilities are endless. The channel closed. The 3 warbirds cloaked simultaneously, vanishing from sensors as if they'd never existed. The bridge was silent except for the ambient hum of the ship's systems. Picard stood frozen, his mind racing through options and finding each one more impossible than the last. They couldn't pursue cloaked vessels. They couldn't launch a rescue operation into Romulan space without starting a war. They couldn't even verify where Logan was being taken. Captain, Worf said quietly, there was nothing you could have done. He made his choice. A choice forced by impossible circumstances, Picard said bitterly. A choice he should never have had to make. Data turned from his console. Captain, I have been analyzing Sub-Commander Solara's transmission. There were several inconsistencies in her statements. She claimed the Tal Shiar detected the dimensional rift before we did, yet our sensor logs show no other vessels in the region when we arrived. She also stated they had been tracking us for 2 days, but Romulan cloaking technology leaves trace particles that our sensors would have detected during routine sweeps. I detected no such evidence. What are you suggesting, Mr. Data? I am suggesting that Sub-Commander Solara's knowledge of Mr. Logan may not have come from external surveillance, but from an internal source. Someone aboard the Enterprise or within Starfleet Command informed the Romulans of his presence. The implications of that statement hung in the air like poison. Riker was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. A spy. Someone feeding intelligence to the Tal Shiar. Or, Troy said softly, someone who believed the Romulans getting Logan was preferable to the Federation keeping him. Someone who saw him as too dangerous to leave in our hands. Picard's jaw tightened. Lieutenant Worf. I want a full security review. Check all subspace transmissions. All personnel movements. Everything. If there is a security breach, I want it found and sealed. Aye, Captain. Commander Riker, contact Admiral Nechayev. Inform her of the situation and request authorization for a rescue operation. Sir. Riker said carefully, "You know what she's going to say. Starfleet won't authorize an incursion into Romulan space for one individual. Especially not one they were already suspicious of. Then I will make her understand why they should." Picard said with steel in his voice. He turned to Data. "Mr. Data. Work with Mr. LaForge. I want to know if there's any way to track those warbirds. Any residual energy signatures. Any subspace distortions. Anything that might tell us where they took him." "Captain," Crusher said from where she'd been standing silently near the medical station, "Logan's healing factor, it generates a unique energy signature that I've been monitoring. It's faint, but it might be detectable at range if we calibrate the sensors correctly. He's essentially a biological beacon." "Do it," Picard ordered. "I want those modifications made within the hour." As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Troy moved to stand beside Picard. "Jean-Luc, I need to tell you something." Right before Logan transported himself, I sensed his emotions. He wasn't just being selfless. He was relieved. Relieved? Relieved to be making a choice that hurt himself instead of others. Relieved to be taking control of his fate instead of having it decided for him. And underneath all that, she paused. Her expression troubled. Underneath all that, he was expecting this. He's lived so long being betrayed, being taken, being used as a weapon, that he almost welcomes it. Because at least then the world makes sense. Picard felt something cold settle in his chest. Then he has lived in a universe far darker than ours, Counselor. And we have failed him in our first test of whether we are truly different. "We'll get him back," Riker said with quiet conviction. "Yes," Picard agreed, moving back to his command chair. "We will. Because I made him a promise. I gave him my word that he would be protected. That he would be treated with dignity and respect. And I do not break my word. Number 1. Not for Starfleet regulations. Not for diplomatic niceties. And certainly not for Romulan threats." He sat down, his expression hardening into something that his crew had learned to recognize, the look of a man who had drawn a line and would not be moved from it. "Helm, set course for the Romulan neutral zone, maximum warp. We're going to find Logan. And when we do, the Romulans are going to learn that taking a guest from the Enterprise was the worst mistake they've ever made. The Romulan warbird Valdora was a study in predatory efficiency, all sharp angles and weapon systems, designed to strike from the shadows and disappear before retaliation. Logan materialized in what appeared to be a cargo bay, surrounded by 6 Romulan soldiers with disruptors aimed at his chest. The air smelled wrong, recycled and metallic, with an underlying scent of ozone that his enhanced senses found immediately unpleasant. "Don't try anything stupid," the lead soldier said in accented Federation standard. "We have weapons set to maximum. Your healing factor won't help you if we vaporize you completely." Logan slowly raised his hands, claws still retracted. "Relax, pal. I'm here voluntarily. Remember? Let's just get this over with." Sub-Commander Solara entered the cargo bay, flanked by 2 more guards and a Romulan in medical robes who carried what looked like scanning equipment. She studied Logan the way a scientist might examine a particularly interesting specimen, clinical interest mixed with possessive satisfaction. "Secure him," she ordered. "Non-lethal restraints. The Praetor wants him intact for study." The soldiers moved in with metallic restraints that clamped around Logan's wrists and ankles. He could feel the hum of energy running through them, some kind of neural inhibitor designed to prevent movement. They weren't expecting him to cooperate, which meant they didn't trust his surrender any more than he trusted their intentions. "Smart. Strip him," Solara commanded. "I want a full biological scan before we reach the research facility." Logan's jaw tightened, but he didn't resist as the soldiers removed his borrowed Starfleet uniform. He'd been through worse indignities. The Romulan medic moved forward with the scanning device, running it over Logan's body while muttering observations in a language Logan didn't understand. "Remarkable," the medic finally said in standard, clearly for Solara's benefit. "The metal skeleton shows no signs of rejection. His cellular structure is regenerating at a rate that should be thermodynamically impossible. And the neural pathways." The medic's eyes widened. "Sub-Commander, his brain chemistry has been artificially modified. Extensively. Someone has suppressed large portions of his memory. Can you restore them?" Solara asked. "Possibly. Though the process would be painful and potentially destabilizing. The neural inhibitors are decades old at minimum. Removing them would be like excavating an archaeological site. Delicate work." Solara smiled coldly. "We have time. And pain is an excellent motivator for cooperation." She moved closer to Logan, studying his face. "Tell me, Logan, that is your name, yes? Do you know what you represent? What you could become in the right hands?" "A lab rat," Logan growled. "Same thing I've been a dozen times before." "No. You represent the future of Romulan military superiority. Imagine an army of soldiers with your healing factor. Warriors who cannot die. Who recover from any wound. Who age so slowly they could serve for centuries. Combined with Romulan discipline and tactical superiority, we would be unstoppable. Logan barked a laugh. You think you're the first to have that idea? They tried it with me. Tried to make more Weapon X subjects. Know what happened? Most of them died screaming. The ones who survived went insane. Turns out, making someone unkillable doesn't make them controllable. Then they lacked proper methodology, Solara said dismissively. Romulan science is far more advanced than whatever primitive program created you. We will succeed where they failed. The ship suddenly shuddered not from weapons fire, but from the strain of high warp speed. Logan's enhanced hearing picked up the change in the engine harmonics. They were running hard and fast, putting distance between themselves and the Enterprise. Take him to the medical bay, Solara ordered. Begin the preliminary procedures. I want a complete genetic map, tissue samples, and bone marrow extracts. Be thorough but careful. The Praetor will be displeased if we damage our prize before he can inspect it personally. The soldiers hauled Logan to his feet. The neural inhibitors making his legs feel like lead weights. They dragged him through corridors that were darker than the Enterprise, lit by green-tinged lighting that cast everything in sickly hues. Other crew members watched as they passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to revulsion at the naked, scarred figure being paraded through their ship. The medical bay was larger than he'd expected, clearly designed for serious research rather than routine medical care. Examination tables lined the walls, surrounded by equipment that Logan's extensive experience with laboratories told him was designed for invasive procedures. One table in the center of the room had restraints built directly into its surface. Secure him there, the medic ordered, pointing to the central table. The soldiers forced Logan down and activated the restraints. Energy fields snapped into place around his wrists, ankles, chest, and forehead, pinning him completely immobile. The neural inhibitors were removed, no longer necessary when he couldn't move a muscle. The medic began setting up his instruments. This will hurt, he said with clinical detachment. Your healing factor will make anesthesia ineffective. I recommend you try to remain calm. Resistance will only prolong the discomfort. Been here before, Doc. Logan said through gritted teeth. Do your worst. The first incision was a line of fire across his chest. Logan felt the scalpel cut through skin, muscle, and reach his ribs, the metal skeleton preventing the blade from going deeper. His healing factor immediately began closing the wound, forcing the medic to use some kind of energy probe to hold it open while he extracted tissue samples. Logan had survived torture before. Had endured experiments that would drive normal humans insane with pain. But there was something particularly cold about Romulan methodology. They weren't trying to break him or make him talk. They were simply dissecting him like he was already dead, his consciousness an unfortunate side effect of the research process. Fascinating, the medic murmured. The cellular regeneration is even faster than the scans suggested. I'm watching muscle tissue regrow in real time. The energy expenditure should be catastrophic, yet his body temperature remains stable. It's as if he's drawing power from an external source. Can you isolate the genetic sequence responsible? Solara's voice came from the doorway. She'd changed into a more practical uniform and was watching the procedure with fascinated intensity. Not yet. The healing factor appears to be intrinsic to every cell in his body. Extracting it would require extensive study. Months. Possibly years of work. Then we have months. Years if necessary. The Praetor has authorized unlimited resources for this project. Logan forced himself to focus past the pain. Past the violation of having his body carved open for study. His healing factor was already working to close the wounds, but the Romulans were good at their jobs. They knew how to keep him cut open, how to extract what they needed while his body screamed in protest. But they'd made a mistake. A small one, but crucial. They'd assumed the neural inhibitors would be enough to keep him compliant during transport. They'd assumed the energy restraints on the table would hold him indefinitely. They'd assumed his healing factor was just biology, fast tissue regeneration and nothing more. They didn't know about the adamantium. Didn't understand that it wasn't just coating his bones, but integrated into them at a molecular level. Didn't realize that the energy fields holding him down were designed to work on organic tissue and conventional metals, not the impossible alloy from another universe. Logan had spent 2 centuries learning his limits. Learning what he could survive. What he could endure. And most importantly what he could break. The energy restraints were strong. But adamantium was stronger. He waited. Endured. Let them think they'd won. Let them carve and study and extract their samples. Let them get comfortable with the idea that he was beaten. And then, when the medic leaned in close to examine a particularly interesting cellular structure, Logan flexed. The adamantium claws erupted through his knuckles with explosive force. The energy restraints, designed to prevent organic movement, didn't register the metal extending until it was too late. 3 blades punched through the medic's chest, bursting out his back in a spray of green blood. The Romulan's eyes widened in shock and pain. Logan retracted the claws and struck again, this time at the control panel beside the examination table. Sparks exploded as the restraint system shorted out, the energy fields flickering and dying. He was off the table before the medic's body hit the floor. The guards at the door raised their disruptors, but Logan was already moving with the speed of someone who'd spent lifetimes in combat. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, claws extended, and tore through them like they were paper. Disruptor fire scorched the walls where he'd been a heartbeat before. Alarms shrieked throughout the ship. Logan grabbed a fallen disruptor, his enhanced reflexes letting him figure out the unfamiliar weapon in seconds. He fired 3 shots through the medical bay door, keeping the Romulan response team pinned in the corridor while he searched for anything he could use. His eyes fell on a data terminal. Without hesitation, he drove his claws into the console, shorting out the ship's internal sensors in this section. Now they couldn't track him directly. They'd have to search the old-fashioned way. Room by room, corridor by corridor, and Logan knew how to hunt just as well as he knew how to be hunted. He moved into the corridor, naked and bleeding and absolutely feral. The Romulans had made a fundamental error in judgment. They'd thought they captured a specimen. What they'd actually done was bring a predator onto their ship and give him a reason to be angry. The Valdor was about to learn why Weapon X called him Wolverine, and why that name was spoken with fear even in universes where gods walk the earth. The Enterprise bridge hummed with controlled tension. 3 hours had passed since Logan's capture, and every minute felt like failure pressing down on Picard's shoulders. The view screen displayed a star chart of the Romulan neutral zone, hundreds of cubic light-years where 3 cloaked warbirds could disappear like smoke in fog. "Anything, Mr. Data?" Picard asked, though he knew the answer before his operations officer spoke. "Negative, Captain. Even with Dr. Crusher's modifications to our sensors, we have detected no trace of Mr. Logan's energy signature. The Romulan vessels could be anywhere within a radius of 6.2 light-years, and that radius expands with each passing minute." Geordi LaForge looked up from the engineering station, his visor scanning readouts that refused to tell him what he needed to know. "Captain, I've pushed the sensors as far as they'll go. We're detecting subatomic particles at ranges that should be impossible. But if the Romulans have Logan in a shielded facility, we'll never pick up his biosignature through their dampening fields." Picard stood, moving to the tactical display where Worf was coordinating the search pattern with nearby Federation vessels. "Surely we have some intelligence on Romulan research facilities near the neutral zone? Black sites where the Tal Shiar would take a high-value subject?" Worf's expression was grim. "There are 17 known facilities within range. However, Starfleet intelligence estimates there are at least twice that number we have not yet identified. The Romulans are meticulous about operational security." "Captain," Riker said from his position at Picard's side. "Admiral Nechayev is hailing again. 3rd time in 2 hours." Picard's jaw tightened. On screen, Nechayev's face appeared, and her expression made it clear this conversation would be unpleasant. "Captain Picard, I have reviewed your request for authorization to conduct a rescue operation in Romulan space. The request is denied. Admiral, with respect." "No, Captain. You will listen." Nechayev leaned forward. "I understand your concern for this individual. I even respect your commitment to protecting those who come aboard your vessel. But you are asking me to authorize an act of war. The Romulans have made it clear they consider Logan to be in their custody voluntarily. He transported himself to their ship. Under interstellar law, we have no grounds for demanding his return. He surrendered under duress to prevent them from destroying the Enterprise," Picard argued. "That hardly qualifies as voluntary custody, a distinction that will not matter to the Romulan Senate or the Federation Council." Nechayev's voice softened slightly, a rare concession. "Jean-Luc, I know you made promises to this man, but the reality is that he's one individual versus the stability of the entire Alpha Quadrant. If we launch a military operation into Romulan space, we could trigger a war that would cost millions of lives. So we abandon him. Allow the Romulans to experiment on him, torture him, potentially create an army of enhanced soldiers using his genetic material." Picard's voice was cold with controlled fury. "That is the Federation's position. That is political reality," Nechayev said flatly. "I'm ordering you to return to Starbase 234. The specialists will want to review everything you learned about Logan's capabilities. Perhaps we can develop countermeasures in case the Romulans succeed in replicating his abilities." "Countermeasures?" Picard repeated, tasting the word like ash. We are already preparing to fight against him. We are preparing for contingencies. That is what Starfleet does. Nechayev's expression hardened. This conversation is over, Captain. You have your orders, Nechayev out. The screen went dark. The bridge was silent except for the ambient sounds of the ship's systems. Picard stood frozen, feeling the weight of command settling on his shoulders like iron chains. Captain, Data said suddenly, his voice carrying an urgency unusual for the android. I am detecting a subspace distortion bearing 173 Mark IV. The pattern is consistent with Romulan cloaking technology experiencing catastrophic failure. Every head on the bridge turned. On screen, Picard ordered. The view screen shifted to show a region of space that appeared empty until sensors began painting a ghostly outline. One of the Romulan warbirds was flickering in and out of visibility, its cloaking device clearly malfunctioning. Life signs? Riker demanded. Multiple Romulan biosignatures, Data reported, and one humanoid reading consistent with Mr. Logan's genetic profile. Captain, they are aboard the warbird Valdor sub-commander Solara's vessel. Why would their cloak be failing? Worf asked, already running tactical analysis. The answer came in the form of an explosion visible even at this range, a bright flare of energy that erupted from the warbird's port nacelle. The ship tumbled out of warp, its cloak dissolving completely to reveal a vessel in clear distress. Atmosphere vented from multiple hull breaches. Interior lights flickered and died in entire sections. They are transmitting a distress signal, Data announced. Audio only, heavily damaged. Let's hear it. The bridge speakers crackled with static and the sounds of weapons fire, screaming, and what could only be described as controlled chaos. Then Solara's voice cut through, strained and barely controlled. All Federation vessels. We require immediate assistance. Subject has escaped containment. Repeat, subject has breached primary systems and is. The transmission dissolved into static. Then cut off entirely. Captain, Worf said with something that might have been respect in his voice, I am reading weapons fire throughout the Romulan vessel, disruptor signatures, plasma burns, and significant structural damage to key systems. It appears Mr. Logan is conducting a one-man insurrection. Picard felt a cold smile touch his lips. Intercept course, maximum warp, Mr. Worf, hail the Valdor. Tell them the Enterprise is responding to their distress call. Sir, Riker said quietly. If we board that ship, if we extract Logan by force, we're doing exactly what Nechayev ordered us not to do. We are responding to a distress call from a vessel in Federation space, Picard said calmly. Standard Starfleet protocol. If we happen to retrieve our guest in the process, well, that is simply fortunate timing. A ghost of a smile crossed Riker's face. Understood, sir. The Enterprise surged forward, stars stretching into lines as they accelerated toward the crippled warbird. Through the view screen, they could see the Romulan vessel more clearly now, hull breaches venting atmosphere, power fluctuations causing lights to strobe, and what looked like internal explosions rippling through various decks. Captain, Data reported. I am now detecting only 143 Romulan life signs. When we first scanned the vessel, there were 207. The casualty rate suggests extreme combat efficiency. Or extreme desperation. Troy added quietly. I can sense Logan even at this range. He's not holding back anymore. All that rage and pain he's been containing, it's free now. He's fighting like something with nothing left to lose. Hailing frequencies open, Worf announced. Solara's face appeared on screen, and the transformation from confident Tal Shiar operative to desperate survivor was stark. Her uniform was torn and scorched. Green blood ran from a cut above her eye. Behind her, smoke and emergency lighting painted a scene of devastation. Captain Picard, she said, her voice lacking any of its earlier smugness. I underestimated the subject. Request immediate assistance in. The transmission cut out as an explosion rocked the visible section of the bridge. When the image stabilized, Solara was gone, replaced by a view of the Valdor's bridge in chaos. And standing in the center of that chaos, covered in green and red blood, with claws extended and eyes absolutely feral, was Logan. He looked directly into the camera. Picard. I know you're out there. I can smell your ship's engine signature through the hull breach. His voice was raw, savage, more animal than man. I'm done being studied. Done being a prisoner. These Romulans wanted a weapon? They got one. Mr. Logan, Picard said carefully. Stand down. We are here to extract you. There is no need for further violence. Logan's laugh was devoid of humor. Stand down? Captain, I spent 3 hours being carved up by these bastards. They took samples. Tried to map my genetic code. Talked about creating an army of me. He grabbed a Romulan officer who was trying to crawl past him, hauling the terrified man up by his collar. How many more? Doc? How many more facilities? How many more subjects you got stashed away for study? The Romulan babbled something in his native language. Logan shook him once, hard enough to make teeth rattle. Federation standard, or I start taking pieces off. 12, the officer gasped. 12 other specimens. Genetic anomalies. Dimensional travelers. Beings with unusual abilities. All for the glory of the Romulan Empire. Logan's expression went cold and hard as stone. He looked back at the view screen. At Picard. You hear that? Captain? 12 more like me. 12 more people these vultures snatched up for their experiments. He tossed the officer aside like garbage. I'm not leaving until I know where they are. Until I can make sure nobody else gets dissected for Romulan glory. That is not your responsibility, Picard said firmly. Mr. Logan, I understand your anger. But if you continue this rampage, you will give the Romulans exactly what they need. Proof that you are too dangerous to allow freedom. You will validate every fear Starfleet has about enhanced individuals. Maybe they're right to be afraid, Logan growled. Maybe I am too dangerous. Maybe the universe would be better off if I just stayed away from everyone. Or perhaps, Picard said quietly, the universe needs people who are willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. People who understand what it means to be treated as less than human, and who refuse to let it happen to others. Logan was silent for a long moment, his chest heaving with exertion and emotion. Behind him, the Vault door's bridge sparked and smoked. Emergency klaxons wailed. And in his eyes, Picard could see the war between the weapon he'd been made into and the man he was trying to be. 12 facilities. Logan finally said. I want their locations. I want Starfleet to investigate every single one. And I want assurances that anyone they find gets proper treatment. Not more experiments. You have my word. Picard said. But first, you need to stand down and allow us to transport you back to the Enterprise. What about Solara and her crew? Picard glanced at Worf, who checked his tactical display. Minimal casualties considering the engagement, the Klingon reported. Most crew members have retreated to secure sections. Sub-Commander Solara is injured but alive. They get picked up by their own people, Picard decided. We take Logan and leave. The Romulans can explain to the Praetor how they lost their prize specimen. Logan looked around the ruined bridge. At the Romulans who were watching him with terror. At the destruction he'd caused. Slowly, reluctantly, his claws retracted. All right. Captain. I'm done. Get me out of here before I change my mind. Transporter room 3. Picard ordered. Lock onto Mr. Logan's coordinates and energize. The blue shimmer of the transporter beam enveloped Logan. For a moment, Picard saw him standing there, a small man who'd taken on an entire Romulan warbird and one, who'd fought not for himself but for the principle that no one should be treated as he had been. Then he was gone, back aboard the Enterprise. Helm, get us out of here, Riker ordered. Before the other two warbirds show up looking for revenge. The Enterprise banked away from the crippled Valdor, accelerating to warp speed. On the view screen, the Romulan vessel shrank to a point of light, then vanished as they left it behind. Picard stood, straightening his uniform. Number 1, you have the bridge. I'll be in sickbay. He paused at the turbolift. And someone get Mr. Logan some clothes. I suspect he's had quite enough of being exposed for one day. Logan sat on the biobed in sickbay, wearing a fresh Starfleet uniform and looking like he'd been through a war which, technically, he had. Dr. Crusher worked methodically, running her medical tricorder over wounds that were already healing, her professional composure hiding what Picard suspected was significant distress at what the Romulan medical scans had revealed. They performed 17 invasive procedures in 3 hours, Crusher said quietly, pulling up holographic displays that made even Picard's stomach turn. Tissue extraction, bone marrow samples, neural mapping, genetic sequencing. They weren't just studying him, they were cataloging every aspect of his biology for replication. Logan stared at his hands. At the knuckles where the claws had retracted. Standard operating procedure. Weapon X did the same thing. Cut me open. See what makes me tick. Figure out how to make more of me. He looked up. His eyes hard. Difference is, I was unconscious for most of what they did to me back then. The Romulans wanted me awake. Wanted to see how much I could take. Picard moved closer, his voice gentle but firm. Mr. Logan, what you did aboard that warbird taking on an entire Romulan crew single-handedly was either extraordinarily brave or extraordinarily reckless. I haven't decided which. Call it what you want, Captain. I wasn't gonna lay there and let them turn me into a prototype for their super soldier program. Logan's jaw tightened. You know what the worst part was? They were excited. That Romulan doc, he was practically giddy when he saw my healing factor work in real time. Like I was some kind of fascinating puzzle instead of a person feeling every cut. Troy entered sickbay. Her expression troubled. Logan, I need to ask, when you were fighting your way through that ship, did you kill anyone? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Logan met her gaze steadily. 18 Romulans dead. Another 32 injured badly enough they won't be fighting anytime soon. The doc who was carving me up, he was first. After that, anyone who got between me and freedom. I didn't go hunting for kills, counselor. But I didn't pull my punches either. 18 deaths, Picard repeated slowly. Mr. Logan, you understand this complicates your situation considerably. The Romulans will demand justice. They will claim you murdered their crew members. Self-defense, Logan said flatly. They kidnapped me. Tortured me. I fought back. That's how it works in my universe, and I'm betting it works the same way here. The legal justification may be sound, Picard acknowledged. But the political reality is more complex. You have given the Romulans ammunition to paint you as a dangerous, uncontrolled variable. Admiral Nechaev's concerns about your presence in Federation space will only intensify. So what are you saying, Captain? You want me to apologize for not dying quietly? For not letting them succeed? I am saying, Picard said with careful precision, that your actions, justified though they may have been, have made your future in this universe significantly more uncertain. Starfleet Command will see this incident as confirmation of their worst fears about enhanced individuals. Logan slid off the biobed, standing despite Crusher's protests that she wasn't finished with her examination. Then maybe it's time we all stopped pretending this was gonna work out. You tried, Captain. You made your promise. Gave me your word. But we both know how this ends. I'm too dangerous, too much of a liability. Sooner or later, Starfleet's gonna want me locked up in some containment facility where I can't hurt anyone. That is not an acceptable outcome, Picard said firmly. Why not? Logan's voice rose, frustration and exhaustion making him raw. It's what I deserve, isn't it? I'm a killer, Captain. That's what I was made to be. That's what I've been for 200 years. Maybe the universe would be better off if I was in a cage. No, Troy said softly but with absolute conviction. That's your trauma speaking, Logan. You've been told so many times that you're just a weapon, just a thing to be used, that you've started to believe it, but I can sense the truth beneath all that self-loathing. You hate what you had to do on that warbird. You hate that violence is your first language. You're desperate for something different, but you're terrified to hope for it because hope has always led to pain. Logan's fists clenched, and for a moment Picard thought the claws would extend. But they didn't. Logan just stood there, trembling with the effort of holding himself together. You don't know what you're talking about, counselor. Don't I? Troy moved closer. Unafraid despite the danger Logan represented. You transported yourself to that Romulan ship to save the Enterprise crew. People you'd known for less than a day. That's not the action of a mindless weapon. That's the action of someone who values other lives more than his own. I was being practical. You were being selfless. Troy interrupted. And when you were on that warbird, fighting your way through their crew, you asked about the other prisoners. The other specimens they'd taken. You cared about people you'd never met, who might not even exist anymore. That's not a weapon talking, Logan. That's a hero. I'm not a hero, Logan said. But his voice lacked conviction. The door to sickbay opened, and Worf entered carrying a PADD. His expression was grave. Captain, I have completed the preliminary security analysis. The information Mr. Logan extracted from the Romulan officer checks out. We cross-referenced it with Starfleet intelligence databases and found corroborating evidence of at least 8 Romulan research facilities conducting experiments on dimensional travelers and genetic anomalies. 8 confirmed, Picard said. The Romulan officer claimed 12. The other 4 are likely classified above Starfleet intelligence's clearance level, Worf said. But the 8 we know about. He activated the pad, displaying locations scattered throughout Romulan space and the neutral zone. If Mr. Logan's information is accurate, there could be dozens of beings currently held in conditions similar to what he experienced. Logan looked at the display, his expression hardening. You gonna do something about it, Captain? Or is this another one of those political reality situations where good people suffer because nobody wants to rock the boat? That, said a new voice from the doorway, is an excellent question. Everyone turned to see Admiral Nechaev standing at the entrance to sickbay, flanked by 2 Starfleet security officers. Her expression was unreadable, but the tension in her posture suggested she was not here for a social call. Admiral, Picard said, surprise evident in his voice. I was not aware you had come aboard. I transported over from the USS Sutherland 5 minutes ago, Nechayev said, her eyes fixed on Logan. I wanted to see firsthand the man who's caused so much trouble. She moved closer, studying Logan with the same clinical assessment Solara had used, though without the predatory edge. You're smaller than I expected. Less imposing. Hard to believe you took down a Romulan warbird crew by yourself. Believe what you want, Admiral, Logan said. Doesn't change what happened. Nechayev circled him slowly, like a prosecutor sizing up a defendant. 18 Romulans dead, a warbird crippled, and left drifting. The Tal Shiar are screaming for your head, demanding we turn you over for trial. The Romulan Senate is threatening to break off diplomatic relations if we don't comply. And now you're telling me there are a dozen secret research facilities we need to investigate? Sounds about right. Logan confirmed. You've created an interstellar incident, Mr. Logan. The kind that starts wars. Then start a war. Logan said bluntly. Because if you don't do something about those facilities, about those prisoners, then your Federation isn't any better than the Romulans. You're just better at pretending to care. The sickbay went dead silent. Picard held his breath, waiting to see if Logan had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Nechayev's face was stone, giving away nothing. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, but genuine. You know what, Mr. Logan? I was prepared to dislike you. I came here expecting to find an unstable, violent individual who needed to be contained for the good of the Federation. Instead, I find someone who's willing to call us on our hypocrisy. She turned to Picard. Captain, I'm authorizing a covert reconnaissance mission. We'll send intelligence operatives to verify the locations Mr. Logan provided. If we find evidence of illegal imprisonment and experimentation, we'll bring the matter before the Federation Council and demand Romulan accountability. And if the Romulans refuse? Picard asked. Then we'll find other ways to apply pressure. Economic sanctions. Diplomatic isolation. Public exposure through sympathetic media outlets. Nechayev's expression hardened. The Federation was founded on principles of justice and dignity for all sentient beings. If we ignore what's happening in those facilities because it's politically inconvenient, then we've lost the moral authority that gives us the right to call ourselves better than empires built on conquest. Logan studied the Admiral with new respect. So you're actually gonna do something? Not just sweep it under the rug. I'm going to try. Nechayev corrected. There will be resistance. Admirals who think we should focus on Federation interests only. Politicians who don't want to antagonize the Romulans. But I've been in Starfleet for 40 years. Mr. Logan, I've learned that sometimes the right thing and the easy thing are very different. And I'm too old to start taking the easy path now. She pulled out a PADD, keying in commands. However, this comes with conditions. You, Mr. Logan, are going to cooperate fully with Starfleet psychologists and medical personnel, not as a specimen to be studied, but as a person who's experienced significant trauma and needs help processing it. I don't need therapy, Logan said automatically. Yes. You do. Crusher interjected. Logan, the neural suppression alone is enough to warrant extensive treatment. Add in 2 centuries of combat trauma, repeated torture, and memory manipulation, and you're looking at psychological damage that would cripple most people. The fact that you're still functional is remarkable, but it doesn't mean you're okay. Dr. Crusher is correct. Nechayev said. And more than that, you need to learn how to exist in Federation society. You come from a universe where violence is a first resort. Here, it's supposed to be the last. If you want to remain free, if you want to avoid being treated as a threat, you need to demonstrate that you can adapt to our values. Logan was silent for a long moment, his jaw working as he processed the offer. And if I can't? If I'm too broken, too damaged, too much of a weapon to ever be anything else? You engine. Troy moved to stand beside him. Then we'll work through it together. One day at a time. One choice at a time. You don't have to be perfect, Logan. You just have to be willing to try. Trying, Logan said softly. I've been trying for 200 years, counselor. It hasn't gotten me very far. Perhaps, Picard said. Because you've been trying alone. The Federation's strength has never been in individual achievement, but in collective effort. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself anymore, Mr. Logan. We're offering you something that I suspect you haven't had in a very long time, a community. Logan looked around sickbay at Picard, Crusher, Troy, Worf, and Nechayev. At faces that showed concern instead of fear. Compassion instead of calculation. For a man who'd spent centuries being betrayed. Being used. Being hurt. It was almost too much to process. Okay. He finally said, his voice rough with emotion he was trying hard to suppress. Okay. I'll try. But I'm not making any promises about the therapy thing. And if your psychologists try to dig into my head like the Weapon X people did, they won't, Nechayev said firmly. You have my word. Any treatment will be strictly voluntary and conducted with your full informed consent. The moment you want to stop, you stop. No questions asked. Your word, Logan repeated, tasting the phrase like Picard had hours before. Lot of people have given me their word, Admiral. Most of them were lying. Then let me be different, Nechayev said. Let us all be different. Give the Federation a chance to prove that we're more than just pretty speeches and high ideals. That when we say we value all sentient life, we mean it. Logan extended his hand, not the one with the claws, but his right hand, scarred and weathered and human. Nechayev took it without hesitation, her grip firm and steady. Deal, Logan said. But if this goes sideways, if you people decide I'm too dangerous after all, I'm gone. I won't let myself be locked up in some containment facility. I'd rather disappear into space than spend the rest of eternity in a cage. Understood, Nechayev said. Though I suspect you'll find the Federation more accommodating than you expect. She released his hand and turned to Picard. Captain, Mr. Logan is officially under your supervision until further notice. He'll remain aboard the Enterprise while we sort out the diplomatic fallout and begin the reconnaissance operations. Consider him a civilian consultant with limited access privileges. Understood. Admiral. Nechayev headed for the door, then paused. Mr. Logan? For what it's worth, I'm sorry for what happened to you. Both in your universe and here. You deserved better. After she left, the sickbay felt somehow lighter. Logan sank back onto the bio bed, suddenly looking exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical injury. So, he said after a long silence, what now? Now, Picard said. We find you a more permanent quarters assignment. We get you properly integrated into the ship's systems. And then, Mr. Logan, you begin the difficult work of healing. Not your body that takes care of itself, but your mind, your spirit. The parts of you that have been wounded in ways that even your remarkable abilities cannot repair. Logan laughed weakly. You make it sound simple, Captain. It will be anything but simple, Picard admitted. It will be difficult, painful, and at times you will want to give up. But I suspect you're familiar with difficult challenges. And this time, you won't be facing them alone. 3 days had passed since Admiral Nechayev's visit. 3 days of Logan learning to exist aboard the Enterprise, a ship designed for exploration and discovery, not combat and survival. It was an adjustment that felt wrong on every level, like trying to speak a language he'd never properly learned. He'd been assigned quarters on Deck 9, near the crew lounges but far enough from critical systems that Starfleet's paranoia was satisfied. The room had a viewport that showed the stars streaming past at warp speed, a luxury he'd never experienced in 2 centuries of existence. Sometimes he'd sit there for hours, just watching, trying to understand how a universe this vast could feel so foreign. The ship's counselor Troy had scheduled daily sessions. Logan attended them, though he spent most of the time sitting in silence while she asked gentle questions he didn't know how to answer. How did he feel about being in this universe? Displaced. Lost. Like a weapon trying to learn how to be a tool. What did he want for his future? To not hurt anyone. To maybe find some kind of peace before the universe reminded him peace wasn't meant for people like him. Worf had taken it upon himself to evaluate Logan's combat capabilities purely for security purposes, or so the Klingon claimed. They'd spent 2 hours in the holodeck, running combat simulations that started as routine threat assessments and escalated into something more. The Klingon fought with honor and skill. Logan fought with 2 centuries of brutal experience. Neither had truly won, but both had walked away with grudging respect. Data visited frequently, asking questions about Logan's universe with the android's characteristic curiosity. What was the scientific development level? How did governments function? Were there other enhanced individuals? Logan answered what he could, which wasn't much. His memories were fragmented, suppressed, filled with gaps that might never be recovered. But Data didn't judge. He just catalogued, processed, and offered observations that sometimes came uncomfortably close to truths Logan wasn't ready to face. Now, Logan stood in the Enterprise's Arboretum, a place Troy had suggested when he'd mentioned feeling claustrophobic. The space was filled with plants from dozens of worlds. A riot of colors and scents that his enhanced senses found overwhelming and oddly peaceful at the same time. He was examining an earth oak tree, marveling that such a thing could exist on a starship, when he heard footsteps behind him. Mr. Logan, Picard's voice. Counselor Troy mentioned I might find you here. Logan turned. Picard was out of uniform, wearing a casual jacket that made him look less like a starship captain and more like a professor on sabbatical. In his hands, he carried 2 glasses of what looked like wine. Captain, Logan acknowledged. Something wrong? Not at all. I simply thought you might appreciate some company. Picard offered one of the glasses. Chateau Picard, 2347, a particularly good vintage from my family's vineyard in France. Logan took the glass hesitantly. Not much of a wine drinker. Then perhaps it's time to expand your palate. Picard moved to stand beside him, looking up at the oak tree. Did you know that oak trees can live for over 1,000 years? They grow slowly, patiently, adapting to their environment while remaining fundamentally themselves. I've always found that rather inspiring. That's supposed to be a metaphor? Captain? Perhaps. Or perhaps I simply appreciate trees. Picard sipped his wine. How are you adjusting to life aboard the Enterprise? Logan took a drink. The wine was smooth, complex, nothing like the harsh alcohol he usually consumed to dull his senses. It's weird. Everything's so clean, organized. People smile at each other in the corridors. Nobody's looking over their shoulder, waiting for the ambush. That troubles you. It makes me suspicious. In my experience, when things are this good, it's because someone's hiding the bad stuff where you can't see it. Picard was quiet for a moment. The Federation is not perfect, Mr. Logan. We have our darkness, our failures, our moments of moral compromise. But we strive constantly, consistently to be better than our worst impulses. To build a society where the bad stuff, as you put it, is the exception rather than the rule. Must be nice, Logan said. More bitterness in his voice than he'd intended. Living in a universe where that's even possible. You could live here too, Picard said gently. That's what we're offering you. Not just sanctuary, but citizenship. A place in a society that values you as a person, not a weapon. Before Logan could respond, the ship's red alert klaxon screamed to life. Picard's comm badge chirped urgently. Bridge to Captain Picard. We're detecting a massive spatial distortion ahead. Sir, it's another dimensional rift. The same energy signature as the one that brought Mr. Logan here. Picard and Logan exchanged glances. On my way, Picard said, already moving toward the exit. Logan followed without being asked. They arrived on the bridge to find organized chaos. The view screen showed a tear in space-time that made the original rift look like a paper cut. This was a gaping wound in reality itself, bleeding energy that made the Enterprise's sensors shriek warnings. And through that wound, something was emerging. Report, Picard commanded, settling into his chair while Logan stood to the side, trying to stay out of the way. Captain, multiple objects are transiting through the rift, Data reported. I am detecting 7 distinct energy signatures. They are not ships. They appear to be individuals. Beings with power outputs that exceed anything in our database. On the view screen, figures began to materialize suspended in the void, wreathed in energy that shouldn't exist. Logan's enhanced vision picked out details before the sensors could resolve them. His blood ran cold. Oh hell, he muttered. Captain, you need to get this ship out of here. Right now. Mr. Logan. Picard turned, alarmed by the urgency in his voice. Those aren't random dimensional travelers, Logan said, his claws extending involuntarily. I know one of them. That's Magneto, master of magnetism, one of the most powerful mutants in my universe. If he's here, if they're all here. He trailed off, watching as more figures continued to emerge from the rift. Captain, you don't understand. In my universe, these people fight gods and win. They reshape reality. They're not like me, I'm just hard to kill. They're on a whole different level. Are they hostile? Worf demanded, his hand already on the weapon's controls. Depends on the day and who you ask, Logan said grimly. But they're gonna be confused, scared, and extremely dangerous. And if they think you're a threat. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Picard stood, his command presence filling the bridge. Open hailing frequencies, let's try to Pravati. The Enterprise lurched violently. Not from weapons fire, but from an invisible force that gripped the ship like a giant's hand. On the view screen, one of the figures, a man in a distinctive helmet and cape, raised his hand. Metal groaned throughout the ship as Magneto's power reached across the void, his magnetic abilities unhindered by the vacuum of space. Shields are being compressed. Data reported. Hull integrity at 87% and dropping. He is crushing us. All power to shields. Riker ordered. Return fire. Belay that, Picard commanded. We fire on them, and we confirm their worst suspicions about this universe. We defend, but we do not attack. Logan moved forward. Captain, let me talk to him. Magneto knows me. We've fought together, fought against each other, but there's history there. Maybe I can? Mr. Data, open a channel, Picard said. Broadcast on all frequencies. The view screen shifted to show Magneto's face, aged but powerful, with the bearing of someone who'd spent a lifetime fighting for survival. His eyes were hard, calculating, and absolutely merciless. Magneto, Logan's voice cut through the static. It's me. Logan, Wolverine. Stand down. These people aren't your enemies. The magnetic pressure on the Enterprise eased slightly. Magneto's eyes narrowed, focusing on the transmission source. Logan? You survived the rift as well. I should have known you're too stubborn to die from something as simple as dimensional collapse. What happened? Logan demanded. Why are you here? Why all of you? An experiment, Magneto said, his voice carrying the weight of tragedy. Charles was attempting to locate other dimensions, other realities where mutants might find sanctuary. Something went catastrophically wrong. The machine created a cascade effect, pulling powerful mutants through dimensional barriers. We were scattered across multiple realities. On the view screen behind Magneto, other figures were visible now. Logan recognized them with growing dread. Storm, crackling with atmospheric energy. Cyclops, his visor containing power that could level mountains. Jean Grey, her form shimmering with the terrifying potential of the Phoenix Force. And others, heroes and villains from his universe, all displaced, all dangerous, all capable of ending worlds if provoked. Captain, Logan said quietly, we have a problem. A big one. These people, they're not gonna just accept being stranded in your universe. Some of them will want to go home. Some of them will try to build new lives here. And some of them. He looked at the view screen, at Magneto's calculating expression. Some of them are gonna see your Federation as either a target or a tool. Picard straightened his uniform, his expression grave but determined. Then we will have to convince them to see us as something else entirely. Mr. Data, transmit our position to Starfleet Command. Inform them we have a situation that requires immediate attention at the highest levels. Priority 1, my authorization. Captain, Magneto's voice came through the speakers, I suggest you prepare your vessel to receive guests. We have questions about this universe. And you clearly have experience with dimensional travelers. His smile was cold. I'm certain we can reach an understanding. The magnetic pressure released completely. The Enterprise's systems stabilized. Damage control teams reporting throughout the ship, but the threat remained, hanging in space like a sword suspended by the thinnest of threads. Logan looked at Picard, at the captain who'd promised him protection and community. Captain, I'm sorry. I brought my universe's problems to yours. These people, my people, they're gonna change everything. The Federation, Starfleet, all your carefully balanced political structures. Nothing's gonna be the same. Perhaps not. Picard agreed. But change is the nature of existence, Mr. Logan. The question is not whether we can avoid it, but whether we can guide it towards something better than what came before. He turned to his crew, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who'd faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious through principle rather than power. Prepare to receive our guests. And someone inform Admiral Nechayev that her concerns about enhanced individuals have just become significantly more complicated. Logan watched as his past collided with his potential future, as the violent universe he'd escaped merged with the peaceful one he was trying to join. He'd spent 2 centuries surviving, adapting, enduring. Now he would have to do something far more difficult. He would have to choose which universe he truly belonged to. And whether the man called Wolverine could exist in a galaxy that prized exploration over conquest, diplomacy over domination, and hope over the bitter resignation he'd carried for so long. The stars streamed past the view screen. The dimensional rift pulsed with unstable energy. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the future hung in balance, waiting for one small man with metal claws to decide if peace was something worth fighting for after all. The Enterprise's main shuttle bay had been converted into a reception area, the only space large enough to accommodate the arrivals from Logan's universe. Security teams lined the walls, phasers set to heavy stun, though everyone knew such weapons would be largely ineffective against beings who could manipulate matter, energy, and reality itself. It was theater, Picard understood, but necessary theater. A show of preparedness if not actual deterrence. Logan stood beside Picard on the raised observation platform, watching as the first transport beam shimmered into existence. Magneto materialized first, his cape settling around him with dramatic flair that seemed almost theatrical against the utilitarian design of Starfleet architecture. His eyes swept the bay, cataloging exits, weapons, potential threats with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd spent a lifetime being hunted. Captain Picard, I presume, Magneto said, his accent carrying European sophistication mixed with something harder. I am Eric Lanesher. Though most know me by another name, I am aware of who you are. Mr. Lanesher. Picard replied evenly. Mr. Logan has briefed me on your capabilities and history. You and your companions are welcome aboard the Enterprise. Though I must ask that you respect our protocols regarding the use of powers aboard a starship. The hull is designed to withstand considerable stress, but I'd prefer not to test its limits. Magneto's smile was thin. A reasonable request. Though I wonder if you fully understand what you're dealing with, Captain. In our universe, we are called mutants, humans born with genetic anomalies that grant us abilities your science would consider impossible. We have been hunted, feared, experimented upon, and killed for the crime of being different. Do not expect us to trust easily. Then we share common ground, Picard said. Mr. Logan has experienced similar treatment. And the Federation was founded on the principle that diversity, genetic, cultural, philosophical, is not a threat but humanity's greatest strength. More transporter beams activated. Storm materialized, a woman of regal bearing with white hair and eyes that flickered with barely contained electrical potential. Cyclops appeared next, his ruby quartz visor containing power that Logan had described as capable of punching holes through starship hulls. Then Jean Grey, her presence radiating a psychic weight that made Troy visibly stagger. Counselor? Picard asked, concerned. She's telepathic, Troy managed, her hand pressed to her temple. Incredibly powerful. I can sense her surface thoughts, confusion, fear, determination, and something else. Something vast and terrible sleeping beneath her consciousness. Logan leaned close to Picard. That's the Phoenix Force. Cosmic entity that sometimes possesses Jean. If it wakes up here, in your universe. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. More arrivals followed. Some Logan recognized with relief, heroes from his universe, people who'd fought on the side of justice despite a world that feared them. Others made his jaw tighten, villains, mercenaries, individuals who'd used their powers for personal gain without regard for collateral damage. And then, in the final transport beam, a figure appeared that made Logan's claws extend involuntarily. Sabretooth. Bigger than Logan, more savage, with claws like daggers and a smile that promised violence. Victor Creed, his oldest enemy, his darkest reflection, the man who'd tormented him for over a century. Their eyes locked across the shuttle bay, and centuries of hatred crystallized into a single moment of recognition. Well, Sabretooth's voice was a predatory rumble. Looks like the runt survived the trip. And here I thought I'd finally be rid of you, Logan. Victor, Logan growled. His entire body tensing for combat. Should have known you'd end up here. Evil's got a way of spreading. Sabretooth took a step forward. Logan matched him. The air between them crackled with imminent violence. Two predators recognizing no law but the one written in blood and adamantium. Gentlemen, Picard's voice cut through the tension like a phaser through fog. You will stand down. Immediately. This is a Starfleet vessel. And violence between passengers will not be tolerated. You gonna stop us, Captain? Sabretooth's laugh was vicious. You and what army? Because I gotta tell you. Those little energy weapons your people are holding? They're not gonna do much against healing factors like ours. Worf stepped forward. His hand on his phaser. Perhaps you would like to test that theory. Perhaps he wouldn't. Magneto interjected. His voice carrying absolute authority. Victor. Logan, we are all displaced. All vulnerable in a universe we don't understand. Whatever feuds you carry from our reality, they are suspended until we determine our situation. Do I make myself clear? Sabretooth's eyes never left Logan's. For now, Langer, but sooner or later, the runt and I are gonna finish what we started. Then later it is. Magneto said with finality. He turned to Picard. Captain. I believe we have much to discuss. The nature of this universe, the possibility of return to ours, and what accommodation might be made for beings of our capabilities within your Federation. Picard gestured toward the exit. Agreed. If you and your companions will follow me to the observation lounge, we can begin those discussions. Commander Riker will see to temporary quarters for everyone until more permanent arrangements can be made. As the group filed out of the shuttle bay, Logan found himself walking beside Storm. She glanced at him with those distinctive white eyes. Her expression softer than Magneto's calculated assessment or Sabretooth's barely contained aggression. Logan, she said quietly, her accent carrying musical African intonations. How long have you been in this universe? Almost a week, Logan replied. Long enough to know it's different from ours. Cleaner. More hopeful. They actually believe in things like justice and dignity for all beings. Not just the strong, not just the useful, everyone. And do you believe them? Storm asked. Or is this simply another variation of the promises we've heard before? Another group claiming to value mutants while secretly planning to control us? Logan was quiet for a moment, thinking about Picard's defense of him against Starfleet Command, about Crusher's care for his well-being, about Data's curiosity without exploitation, about Troy's insistence that he was more than what he'd been made into. I think, he said finally, that they're trying, really trying. And maybe that's enough. In the observation lounge, Picard took his position at the head of the conference table while the displaced mutants arranged themselves around it. It was a strange assembly, heroes and villains, idealists and pragmatists, all united by the common experience of being torn from one reality and deposited in another. First, Picard began. Let me extend a formal welcome to the United Federation of Planets. You have entered a reality where faster than light travel is common, where dozens of species coexist peacefully, and where the principles of mutual respect and cooperation govern interstellar relations. Your arrival poses certain challenges, but I want to assure you that the Federation's first priority is your well-being and eventual return to your home universe. And if return is impossible, Jean Grey asked, her voice carrying layers of concern. If the dimensional barriers are too damaged, or if the energy required to open another rift is beyond this universe's capabilities, then we will work to integrate you into Federation society, Picard said. You would be granted asylum as dimensional refugees, with full rights and protections under Federation law. However, I must be candid, your powers present unique challenges. The Federation has strict laws regarding genetic enhancement, born from historical conflicts with genetically modified individuals who attempted to conquer Earth. Magneto's expression hardened. So we are to be treated with suspicion, regarded as potential threats despite having committed no crimes in this universe. You are to be treated with caution, Picard corrected. There is a difference. Mr. Logan's arrival forced Starfleet to confront questions we'd thought settled, questions about power, control, and the rights of enhanced individuals. Your presence amplifies those questions exponentially. Cyclops leaned forward, his visor gleaming in the observation lounge's lighting. Captain, in our universe, we're called the X-Men. We fight to protect a world that hates and fears us. We've faced extinction-level threats, genocidal campaigns, and political persecution that lasted generations. We're not looking for trouble, we just want to survive. And I respect that, Picard said. But you must understand the combined power in this room could potentially threaten entire worlds. Storm commands weather systems. Magneto controls the fundamental forces that hold our technology together. Jean Grey's telepathic abilities could compromise the minds of every person aboard this ship. The Federation cannot simply ignore those realities. So what are you proposing? Storm asked. Registration? Containment? Some version of the Mutant Registration Act that humans in our world have tried to impose on us? I am proposing dialogue, Picard said firmly. I am proposing that we work together to find solutions that respect both your autonomy and the legitimate security concerns of the Federation. Mr. Logan has agreed to voluntary psychological treatment and power management protocols. In return, he maintains his freedom and is under the protection of Starfleet. Similar arrangements could be made for all of you. Voluntary, Magneto repeated, tasting the word, with the implicit understanding that refusal would result in forced containment. With the understanding that cooperation demonstrates good faith, Picard countered. The Federation does not imprison people for what they might do, Mr. Lancher. But neither can we ignore the potential consequences of uncontrolled power. We are asking you to meet us halfway to show that you can coexist peacefully within our society while we work to find a way to return you home. Jean Grey spoke, her voice carrying a weight that suggested she was struggling with something beyond this conversation. Captain, there's something you need to know. The dimensional rift that brought us here, it's not stable. I can sense it, even now. It's like a wound in the fabric of reality. And it's getting worse. If we don't find a way to close it properly, it could destabilize both universes. Data's console chirped urgently. Captain, sensors are detecting massive subspace fluctuations emanating from the coordinates of the original rift. The spatial distortions are expanding at an exponential rate. If current trends continue, the rift will tear open completely in approximately 47 hours. What would that mean? Riker asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer wouldn't be good. It would mean, Data said gravely, a complete breakdown of the dimensional barriers between universes. Matter and energy from both realities would begin to merge, creating cascading paradoxes that could unravel the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. In essence, both universes would cease to exist in any recognizable form. The observation lounge went silent. The implications were staggering: two entire universes hanging in the balance, trillions of lives at risk, all because of an experiment gone wrong. Logan stood, his hands flat on the conference table. So we've got 47 hours to fix this. Or everything both universes ends. That about right? That is correct. Data confirmed. Then we stop talking and start working, Logan said. His voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent 2 centuries making impossible choices. Captain, these people my people, they've saved their universe more times than I can count. They've faced down gods, aliens, sentient machines, and cosmic entities. If anyone can figure out how to close that rift, it's them. But they're gonna need your help, your technology, your scientists, your resources. Picard looked around the table. At faces both familiar and alien, at beings who represented the best and worst of the universe Logan had left behind. Then he looked at Logan himself, the man who'd arrived less than a week ago, who'd been tortured and traumatized, who'd fought his way through impossible odds, and who now stood asking for trust between 2 worlds. Mr. Data. Contact Starfleet Command. Picard ordered. Inform them we require immediate assistance from the Federation's top xenophysicists and dimensional theorists. Mr. LaForge. Begin working with. He paused, looking at the assembled mutants. Who among you has experience with dimensional physics or energy manipulation? Jean Grey raised her hand. I've worked with Charles Xavier, Professor X, one of the most brilliant minds in our universe. He taught me theory that might apply here. And my telepathy allows me to coordinate multiple specialists simultaneously, sharing information faster than any conventional communication method. Magneto's understanding of electromagnetic fields could help stabilize the rift's energy matrix, Storm added. And my ability to manipulate atmospheric pressure might allow us to create a controlled environment around the breach point. Cyclops nodded. The X-Men have protocols for exactly this kind of crisis. We'll need to coordinate both universes' resources, which means you'll need someone to liaise between your Starfleet personnel and our people. I volunteer. Picard felt something shift in the room, a transition from suspicion and fear to something more productive, purpose. Then we have a plan. Or the beginning of one. Mr. Logan. I want you to work directly with your counterparts. You understand both universes now. You're the bridge between what was and what could be. Logan looked uncomfortable with the responsibility but nodded. Yeah. Okay. I can do that. As the meeting dissolved into smaller groups coordinating efforts, Picard found himself standing at the observation lounge viewport beside Magneto. The master of magnetism studied the stars with an expression that might have been melancholy. You know, Magneto said quietly, in our universe, I've spent a lifetime fighting for mutant supremacy. Arguing that we evolved beyond baseline humanity. That we deserve to rule rather than be ruled. But standing here, looking at a galaxy filled with thousands of species, each with their own abilities and perspectives. He trailed off. It makes our conflicts seem rather provincial, doesn't it? Different scales. Picard said. But the same fundamental questions. How do the powerful coexist with the vulnerable? How do we prevent might from becoming right? The Federation wrestles with these questions constantly. We don't always get the answers correct, but we keep trying. And Logan? Magneto asked. Has he found his answers here? Picard watched as Logan argued with Sabretooth about energy distribution protocols, their centuries-old hatred temporarily sublimated by the greater crisis. I believe he's beginning to, for the first time in perhaps 2 centuries, Mr. Logan is part of something larger than survival. He's contributing to a community that values him not for what he can kill, but for who he chooses to be. Then perhaps, Magneto said, there is hope for all of us. The next 47 hours would determine the fate of 2 universes. The Enterprise had become ground zero for a crisis that transcended dimensional boundaries, political affiliations, and the ancient divisions between human and enhanced, Starfleet and mutant, order and chaos. And at the center of it all stood Logan Wolverine. Weapon X. A man with no past and an uncertain future, proving that sometimes the smallest person in the room could be the one who held worlds together. Not through violence or power, but through the simple choice to try. To hope. To believe that even in a universe governed by entropy and inevitable decay, there was still room for something better. Still room for peace. The dimensional rift pulsed one final time before collapsing in on itself, its exotic energies dispersing harmlessly into subspace. The combined efforts of Starfleet's top physicists and the X-Men's most brilliant minds had succeeded. Both universes were saved, the barriers between realities restored to stable equilibrium. But the success came with a price. Logan stood in the Enterprise's Arboretum 3 weeks later, watching Earth rotate slowly through the viewport. The ship had returned to space dock for extensive repairs and diplomatic negotiations. Around him, the Federation Council debated the future of enhanced individuals in their society, using the X-Men's arrival as catalyst for long overdue conversations about power, responsibility, and the rights of beings who defied conventional categorization. Most of the X-Men had returned home through a carefully controlled portal. Magneto, Storm, Cyclops, and the others crossing back to their universe with promises to maintain contact through experimental subspace communication. The dimensional barriers were stable now, but not impenetrable. Two universes, once isolated, were now aware of each other. Trading knowledge, sharing philosophy, learning, but Logan had made a different choice. "I thought I'd find you here." Picard's voice came from behind him. The captain moved to stand beside Logan, hands clasped behind his back in that characteristic pose. "The Council has reached a decision regarding your citizenship application." Logan's jaw tightened. 3 weeks of testimony, psychological evaluations, power demonstrations, and political debate. 3 weeks of people deciding whether he deserved to exist freely in this universe or whether he was too dangerous to trust. They approved it, Picard continued, and Logan heard the smile in his voice. "Unanimously. You are officially a citizen of the United Federation of Planets, with all rights and protections therein. You're also being offered a position civilian consultant to Starfleet on dimensional threats and enhanced individual integration." Logan was silent for a long moment, processing words he'd never expected to hear. Citizenship, rights, a job that wasn't about killing. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why'd they say yes? I killed 18 Romulans. I'm a walking weapon. Everything they should be afraid of. Because," Picard said gently, "you also sacrificed yourself to save this ship. You provided intelligence that's already led to the liberation of 7 beings held in illegal Romulan facilities. You worked with the X-Men to save 2 universes. And most importantly, you've demonstrated every single day that you are trying genuinely, sincerely trying to be more than what you were made to be. The Council believes," Picard continued, "that the Federation is strengthened by diversity. That includes beings with extraordinary abilities, as long as those abilities are governed by extraordinary character. You've proven your character, Mr. Logan. Time and again." Logan felt something break loose in his chest, some ancient barrier he'd built around hope, around the possibility of belonging. "I don't know how to be anything but a fighter, Captain." "Then fight for something worth protecting," Picard said simply. "Fight for the ideals that this Federation represents. Fight for beings who can't fight for themselves. Fight not because you're a weapon, but because you choose to be a guardian." Through the viewport, Earth turned a blue-green jewel suspended in the void, home to billions who lived without fear of the next battle, the next betrayal, the next loss. A world that had evolved beyond the violence of Logan's universe, that had chosen exploration over conquest, cooperation over competition, hope over cynicism. "I want to stay," Logan said quietly. "Not just because I can't go home. Because I want to see if I can be something different here. Something better." "Then welcome home, Mr. Logan," Picard said, extending his hand. Logan took it, and for the first time in 200 years, the handshake felt like a promise that might actually be kept. 6 months later, the USS Enterprise-D dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sulla system, responding to reports of unusual dimensional readings. On the bridge, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, but now there was an additional presence. Logan stood at a newly installed station between tactical and sciences. His official designation: Dimensional Security Specialist. He wore a modified Starfleet uniform, no rank insignia, since he wasn't military. But the Federation delta prominent on his chest. His hair was still wild. His bearing still that of a man who'd spent centuries fighting. But there was something different now, something calmer. Scanning the dimensional variants, he reported, studying readouts that 6 months ago would have been incomprehensible. Data had been teaching him, patiently explaining quantum mechanics and subspace theory. Logan had discovered he had a knack for it, pattern recognition honed by 2 centuries of survival translated surprisingly well to scientific analysis. "Mr. Logan?" Picard asked from the command chair. "It's another small rift, Captain. But it's controlled. Someone's opening it deliberately from the other side." Logan's enhanced senses picked up something in the energy signature. "And I know that pattern. It's Professor Xavier's Cerebro signature." On the view screen, a small portal stabilized. Through it, the face of Professor Charles Xavier appeared, bald, wise, sitting in his distinctive hover chair. Behind him, the X-Mansion study was visible. "Captain Picard," Xavier's telepathic voice resonated clearly despite the dimensional barrier. "And Logan, I trust this communication finds you well?" "Professor," Logan said, and there was warmth in his voice. "Everything okay on your end?" "Quite well, thank you. I'm calling because we've detected another dimensional traveler entering your universe, but this one isn't from our reality. Our sensors suggest someone from yet another universe has crossed over. Someone with considerable power." Picard and Logan exchanged glances. The multiverse was larger than either had imagined. And dimensional barriers, once thought impenetrable, were proving increasingly permeable. Do you have coordinates? Picard asked. Xavier transmitted the data. Be careful, Captain. Whoever this is, they're not like Logan or the X-Men. The energy signature suggests something more primal, ancient, perhaps even magical in nature. After the communication ended, Picard turned to his crew. Helm, set course for the coordinates. Warp 6. Mr. Logan, I'll want you on the away team when we investigate. Logan's claws extended slightly, not in threat, but in readiness. Old habits died hard. But now those habits served a different purpose. Aye, Captain. Let's go see who needs help this time. The Enterprise banked gracefully, accelerating toward the unknown. In his station, Logan felt something he'd rarely experienced in 2 centuries of existence. Purpose. Not as a weapon to be aimed, not as a victim to be experimented on, but as a person choosing to protect others because it was right. The Federation had given him something his universe never could. The chance to decide who he wanted to be. And Logan Wolverine, Weapon X, survivor of countless battles and betrayals, had chosen to be a guardian. To stand between the innocent and the threats they couldn't face alone. To use his unkillable nature not for destruction, but for protection. The stars stretched into lines as the Enterprise jumped to warp. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, another dimensional traveler was lost and confused, thrust into a universe they didn't understand. But this time, they wouldn't be alone. This time, someone who understood what they were going through would be there to help. Because that's what the Federation did. And now, it's what Logan did too. The legacy. In the months and years that followed, Logan would become a bridge between universes, helping other dimensional travelers adapt, working with Starfleet to establish protocols for enhanced individuals, and occasionally returning to his home universe through carefully controlled portals to consult with the X-Men on mutual threats. He never fully lost the edge that 2 centuries of violence had given him. The nightmares still came. The berserker rage still lurked beneath the surface. The memory gaps from Weapon X's conditioning never fully healed. But he also discovered things he'd never known in his old universe. A community that valued him for more than his claws. Scientific colleagues who asked his opinion rather than studying him like a specimen. And the radical concept that maybe, just maybe, he deserved peace. Counselor Troy continued their sessions, helping him process trauma one carefully constructed memory at a time. Dr. Crusher monitored his unique physiology, fascinated not by how to replicate it but by how to ensure his quality of life. Data engaged him in philosophical discussions about identity and purpose that sometimes lasted entire shifts. Worf trained with him in the holodeck, 2 warriors from different traditions finding common ground in the discipline of combat. And Picard remained his staunchest advocate, defending his place in Starfleet against admirals who still saw him as a threat, reminding the Federation Council that their principles meant nothing if they only applied to the convenient cases. Logan learned to live in a universe where violence was the last resort instead of the first language. Where problems could be solved with words, treaties, and mutual understanding rather than claws and rage. Where being unkillable didn't mean you had to spend eternity alone. He learned, slowly and painfully, that weapons could be retired without being destroyed. That soldiers could find peace without losing their strength. That even someone designed for death could choose to fight for life. The Federation changed him. But he changed the Federation too. His presence forced Starfleet to confront uncomfortable questions about power, enhancement, and the rights of beings who didn't fit neatly into established categories. His example proved that genetic modification wasn't inherently evil, that the character of the individual mattered more than the capabilities they possessed. He became a symbol, proof that even in a universe of logic and order, there was room for those shaped by chaos and violence. That redemption wasn't just possible but achievable. That the Federation's promise of infinite diversity and infinite combinations extended even to those who'd been weaponized, traumatized, and told they could never be anything but what they'd been made to be. Logan Wolverine, the best at what he did, discovered that what he did didn't have to be killing. It could be protecting, teaching, bridging, healing. It could be choosing, every single day, to be better than his worst moments and more than his darkest programming. In a universe full of explorers seeking strange new worlds, Logan had found the strangest world of all. One where a man with adamantium claws and 2 centuries of trauma could finally, impossibly, find home. And so ends the tale of Wolverine's arrival in the Star Trek galaxy, a story of collision and synthesis, of violence meeting diplomacy, of a weapon learning to be a person. But every ending is also a beginning, and in the vast darkness between stars, infinite stories await. Other universes, other travelers, other chances for those lost to find their way home, not to the place they left, but to the place they choose to belong. The Enterprise continues its mission of exploration. Logan continues his journey of redemption. And somewhere in the multiverse, the next impossibility is already forming, ready to test whether the Federation's ideals can withstand contact with yet another reality's champions and monsters. Because that's what Star Trek has always been about. Not just exploring space, but exploring possibility. Not just seeking new life, but understanding it. Not just going boldly, but going wisely, compassionately, and with the unshakable conviction that diversity in all its forms makes us stronger. Live long and prosper, travelers. The universe is vast, the story's endless, and the adventure never truly ends. It only transforms.